To the Bradenton City Council meeting Wednesday, September 13th, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. in City Hall Council Chambers. As always, we'll start our meeting with an invocation and pledge. And at this time, I'd like to call Pastor Don Steriano with Kingdom Life Christian Church and the great chaplain for the Bradenton Police Department.
Yay.
Please stand.
Good morning, awesome city leaders. Would you bow your heads, please? Dear Heavenly Father, we welcome your presence to be made manifest in this meeting today. I pray for each of our city leaders that your abundant blessings would be upon every area of their lives and their beloved families. Protect them and guide them, strengthen them, keep them, and remind each one of them that they are loved, significant, needed, and honored, and made in your divine image. And I pray that this revelation that they are your sons and daughters strengthen their hearts and their minds and their souls. I also declare this over every cherished employee and citizen of our friendly city. I pray for today's meeting that wisdom would be their rudder, your will would be their compass, and their love for the city and its people would be the fuel that propels them to the destination of their decisions. I pray where there is diversity in opinion that the spirit of unity, honor, kindness, and compassion would be their bond for harmony. I pray they would rule with the heart of a servant and serve with the heart of a king. I declare your glorious kingdom to come and your perfect will to be done in the beautiful city of Bradenton as it is in heaven. It is in the name of Jesus the Christ I pray this all. Amen.
Amen. Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk?
We do not have any proclamations or presentations this morning.
Okay, so at this point in the meeting, we're at citizen comment. At this time, we'll take citizen comment during the citizen comment portion of the meeting of any non-agenda items, agenda items, future agenda items, or topics of relevance to the city. Comments will be accepted on the public hearing at the appropriate time. So at this time, I have two cards. First one is Evan Jones. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. And as we know, there's no comment on the from the council until all citizen comments are finished, and we'll answer questions after that. And please abide by the 3 minutes, because if we go over the 3 minutes, you may be asked to or escorted out of the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. Please state your name and address for the record.
Evan Jones.
Okay. Go ahead. You have something you want to say?
Just come to say about my house. I just need to be repaired, tear it down and repair it. It's old. It's a very old house. It's a very old house, and it's need to be repaired and all that. It need to be remodeled and everything. See, it's a very old house.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and say what you want to say, and then we can try to get you with the right department if you have something you specifically want to say in your time here.
No, Pam got it all.
Okay, so what we can do is have you get with some departments afterwards then,
Yeah.
and they can give you an update what they've got.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we have the Honorable Eugene Gallo. That's what you wrote on the form, Mr. Chief Council Member Gallo.
Mm-hmm. Good morning. First, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to request that I have a little more than 3 minutes, because I am representing a group here that no needing all of them speaking.
We got to stick within the 3 minutes, but we are going to have some discussion about what you're going to talk about. So if you want to.
So you're only going to allow me to have 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Things changed.
Well, things have changed over the last couple of years with some lawsuits and things that we have to stick within the 3 minutes.
Well, first of all, I understand that the city's in discussion with the firefighters about the insurance, and I appreciate that. I just want to be sure that, that you consider the older retired firefighters with the same respect as you do the ones that are retiring now. I just want to tell you that some of the issues, if I have time, that the older firefighters dealt with, we not only have physical problems, but we have problems that, like PSD, that really bothers us psychologically. And I just want to tell you a few of them that you understand. We were called one day to go out of the city limits to a development that had 4 sewage plants, not plants, but they were actually septic tanks that a young child had fallen into. And I have a man in my audience who, when he arrived, he jumped into 8 foot of raw sewage, and him and another man to go get that baby and find it. No equipment, just took your shoes off and went. He suffered year after year of bacterial type problems, and who knows what will come on later on. We made a run at Tropicana one time where the auger that grinds up the peels and everything, there was a mechanic working on there and he forgot to lock the electricity box and somebody turned it on. When we got there, all we saw was arms, feet, legs and stuff coming down that auger. That has never left my mind. I even remember a name of a fellow by the name of James Cleveland Lovett, who killed his entire family, including his grandbaby, and set fire to the house and trapped himself. While he got burnt, he did not die. But when we picked up the baby, in fact, I think I'm the one that picked her up, I looked down in her bed and there was a bullet that had went through that child. That has never left my mind. Called to a house where there was 5 children. 5 children at the windows. The house was totally on fire. The lady was a babysitter. She had locked the front door to go across the street and drink a beer. By the time we got in there, all 5 of those kids were dead. The window that I went to, I saw 2 pairs of hands on the glass trying to get out. I've never forgot that. So what I want to tell you, that I know that your job is a job of priorities. You, 5 council people, determine what the priorities are for this city of Bradenton. Please, please, don't put firefighters, old firefighters, young firefighters that have retired, when it comes to dealing with health, don't put them on the bottom of the list. And last thing I will say,
Yeah, I'll finish. Yes, please.
hopefully, I probably already forgot it, is when I was chief, one of the things that I told every brand new firefighter, you have the best job in your life. You take care of it, it will take care of you the rest of your life, including retirement and health insurance.
All right, thank you.
And I appreciate your consideration.
Yes, sir, thank you. I have no other cards, so at this time I'll ask Mr. Perry. We had talked about even this before the meeting today, just to kind of go over some of the firefighters, and there's some consent agenda items, things working to make it as best as possible in this crazy insurance world we live in now. So did you have anything you wanted?
Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, point of order, perhaps if I could make a motion to approve the consent agenda with item number K removed, that would bring us to a discussion point on that.
Yeah, I was just gonna have him address a little bit about that and then talk about, I figured we'd remove K. So, you wanna wait and do it all at once, it'd be easier, so we do it.
I think it's cleaner.
I think it probably is cleaner.
Yeah, okay.
Pull that, vote on the consent agenda, and then go to that item.
Right.
And
have a
separate.
Presentation regarding retiree health.
Okay, all
So,
right.
Mr. Mayor, I made a motion to approve the consent agenda with item K removed for discussion. I
All right.
did not hear a second, but
Second, okay. We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda with K for further discussion. We have a motion and a second.
Discussion?
Yes, sir.
We still have a gentleman that I believe Ms. Coachman was going to address in the citizen
Yeah,
comment.
okay, yeah, you want to address that before we go to that motion? Is that okay with the motion or to wait? Yep.
Keep it clean.
All right, yeah,
Better-
yeah, go.
better keeping
Yep,
it clean.
yep, all right.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Coachman.
Mr. Jones, thank you for coming in. We have spoken on the phone, and Ms. Pam Skelding has has talked with you quite a bit, and all I can say is this is something I've said so many times: government moves so slowly. And Ms. Skelding, I don't know if you would want to come up and say anything.
Yes. Good morning. Yes, I've been working with Evan for a while now, getting the required documentation that we need to move his application forward. Our last meeting was August 10th, where we went over some of the items that we need to move his application forward. We just received his Social Security, driver's license, and an actual signed contract so that we can move forward with getting bids for his work. So it is moving forward, but as you said, you know, things move slowly. So our next step is to get a scope of work and get bids. We just got the final information from him August 17th, and we are moving forward with that. So, you know, now that we've got all the required documentation we need to have a complete application, that is being moved forward. So we have been working hard in trying to get those documents so that he is eligible for the support.
Does it typically take this length of time? I'm not really sure when it started. I know I've
Right.
spoken with him probably in the
Right.
last year.
Well, when an application isn't complete and we're still waiting for documentation, it all depends on how quickly we get that information. Once that information is in, it moves rather quickly. It's just a matter of we needed documentation. If we ever get audited and we don't have all that information in the file, we could be in trouble with the State Housing Initiatives Partnership. So we need to be real clear that we get that information.
Understood. Just hoping that in the future, and then definitely in the present with this case, that we can somehow expedite things. You know, sometimes we may have to have someone go out to the citizen and gather the information if it's difficult for them to come in. I'm not complaining to you, but
Right,
just saying,
right.
you know, sometimes we have to go a little extra mile. This is the friendly city. But thank you, because
Exactly.
I know you're really on it, and wish we could put some, you know, speed in it, but I know you're doing the best you can.
Right,
Just
yes.
stay
You know, now that we have the documentation, you know, we're in good shape to keep things moving forward. We just couldn't do that without, we needed like some information from Social Security and what his payment is and his income for the eligibility for income ability. So it's just been a process of getting all that information together, and now that we have that from Evan, we can move forward, so.
Can I ask
Thank
a
you. Yes,
question of
ma'am.
Ms.
Yes,
Gelding?
ma'am.
What program is this that
This is for the SHIP program.
SHIP, okay.
Yes,
That's what I was
yes.
wondering, okay,
Yeah.
great.
So,
Any
and
other
we do have funds in that as part of our initiatives to help. Evan wants his home demolished and then rebuilt. So we do have funds for that strategy. So I don't see a problem with it moving forward because we are covered with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
We'll-
Okay,
we'll
thank you.
stay in contact.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else from the council before we move on to the consent agenda? Anything? All right. Okay, so Ms. Barnaby, would you like to make that motion?
I
again?
make the motion that we approve the consent agenda with item K being removed for discussion.
And Ms. Coachman has the second. All right. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 5.
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
and 4, so carries unanimously. All right, item K, Ms. Barnaby.
Well, this has been something that I know that, never had angels sing when I start talking. That's pretty cool. I know this is something that the staff have been working diligently on. I know that there have been many discussions within the staff and with several different former members of the Bradenton Fire Department. And I believe that Mr. Perry told me that he had a presentation to try to share as much information with us as we need to make this decision.
And it also has been discussed numerous times at the insurance committee level, figuring out where, when, how, and I think over the years, it's been talked about how to make it where it's amicable for everyone. Mr. Perry?
Mayor, Councilor Barnaby, appreciate the opportunity. I think I want to give a little bit of background on the issue that's before council. The specific issue before council is a Medicare alternative program that picks up basically Part C. And of course, we all know that Medicare is a federal program that we all pay into on our taxes each and every pay period, so that when we reach Medicare eligibility at 65, that program will pick up a certain base health care program. And then there's Part B and Part C, and this really addresses that B and C supplement. One of the interesting things is that we talked about the background of the insurance committee over the last year and the authorization by council through the administration to utilize the services of an insurance consultant to analyze our insurance program for health care for our employees. Two groups of employees: active employees and retirees. And we did that analysis. We shopped the program itself as far as how to do cost savings with administration of the program. It's very important to understand that the program is not a casualty loss program where we buy insurance for our employees. We are self-insured. And so really, whatever our claims experience is as it relates to how much healthcare services we use is our cost of insurance, in addition to two other components. The second component is the administrative component, a third-party administrator, Blue Cross Blue Shield, who administers the program itself. And that program includes all healthcare services. It also includes prescription drugs and a host mental health and a host of other panoply of services. So we got the cost of experience for the self-insured plan. We have the cost of administration. And then the last cost we have is the what we call the excess coverage, because claims over $275,000, we do have a casualty insurance policy. A lot of oncology type claims and things like that can be very, very expensive, upwards of $1 million per patient. And so we have to cover our downside loss that way. We were running a significant deficit in the city, and one of the reasons why is that we did not increase health care cost as cost increase. We didn't move that over and recover the cost for the employer portion, the employee portion, I should say. The employer paid it exclusively, being the city of Bradenton. The interesting thing to understand is when we talk about active employees, and we made changes to the policy and did a 75% paid by the employer or city of Bradenton, 25% paid by the employee, that moved the cost of insurance up for the employees themselves and the city, but it basically was compensated on a 3-to-1 split. Retirees don't work that way. Retirees pay 100% of their insurance cost. The law says we have to give them the same policy that we give active employees. But my point with this is that the incidence of that cost was borne more by retirees because they're paying their full share. The incidence on an active employee is 75% city, 25% employee. And so it went up, but it went up much less significantly. So that's a little bit about the setup of the issue. Large cost increases over a period of time. Cities goes from, when I first came in, I think it was about $4.5–5 million a year, and then it went up a couple million the next year, and by this year it's up to close to $9 million for our overall healthcare program. Those are significant costs. And remember, when you're talking about healthcare, inflation itself, the cost of healthcare goes up fairly significantly each and every year. We're going to show you now, Mr. Williams is going to show you an analysis we did regarding the specific retiree healthcare program, not the active program. And it's important to look at it in two perspectives. One, Medicare eligible, 65 and over, and non-Medicare eligible, because the cost to the city changed significantly within those two categories. There's only about 180 employees that are retired that receive benefits. Although they pay 100% of their insurance as a retiree, we supplement that with what's called a stipend. The stipend is based on how long the employee actually worked for the city. In many cases, it's 400. I shouldn't say in many cases. In probably the best cases, it's $400, maybe a little slightly more as a stipend. So if you have an insurance family plan, and it cost $1,300 per month in total, $400 is supplemented. So you're paying basically, in that case, $900 for a family plan, which is a pretty good deal. If you went to the exchange, which is the Obamacare nationalized federal health system, it's sliding scale, but generally speaking, even if you were on the lower income of that, a family plan would probably cost somewhere on the order of $1,500 a month, and it's required that you have it. But Lance is going to give a presentation on where we're at right now so that you understand the specifics. The good news is that myself, Mr. Williams, Ms. Taylor, and a host of other folks have been helping us with this issue. We've sat down with Mr. Huffman and Rocco from IAF, the state program, and it really applies mostly to two classes of employees, this problem, and those classes of employees are public safety employees. One of the reasons why is because a public safety employee starts, in many cases, at a younger age, 20, in some cases even before that, before the ages would change for qualifications. And so they retired under the old program at 20 years or 25 years. They're fairly young. They're still in their 40s, basically. And they still have children, so they need health care, family plans, and they're not Medicare eligible because they're in their mid-40s. And they've got 20-plus years before they are Medicare eligible. So that particular subset of retirees is fairly significantly affected by this. Now, some might say that that's true, they are affected, but when you retire at that age, many can go get a second job, and do. And so you have the benefit of a fixed income pension that you're receiving every month, but you're also young and you're working. We looked at some options on that. We really don't want to do what's called means testing, saying if you do that, that would be a different category, because it's really not fair. If you earned it, you earned it. That's the way we look at it. And these people have earned it in the public safety, for sure. But Lance is going to give you a little bit of an overview on the specific numbers. And I'm sorry to take so much time, but it's a very complex situation.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Are we allowed to ask a question?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Lance Williams, Finance Director. So, as Mr. Perry discussed, unfortunately, I wish, hindsight's always 20/20, right? I wish we would have started this much sooner, given the fact that we know what we know, and as we've kind of delved into it and sliced it apart and said, okay, really analyzed where we were, what we wanted to do. But given that, what we did was we spent quite a bit of time specific to retirees, looking for different, because we do have different categories. We have retirees that are Medicare eligible, ones that are not Medicare eligible, ones that are pre-2012 retirees, which meant something to, our previous administration as far as how they conducted the retiree health insurance. Then we have our post-2012. So there's many different categories, and just our 179 retirees, there's several different categories to deal with. So
that's the universe, 179 to think about.
Right. So just to kind of give you a quick overview. So 179 retirees, and this first slide just splits them up basically between the prior to 2012 and then retired from 2012 or later. And why is that significant? That's significant because the prior to 2012, there was an agreement, although we can't find it documented anywhere. There was an agreement, we've held to that, is that the idea is that pre-2012, the pensions weren't as robust as they are today. And those folks didn't really have the monthly income from that pension to offset some of the health care insurance. So many of them have lower cost monthly health care insurance, and it was agreed upon that they would go up 8% every year.
It originally started at 3%, the agreement, but after 1 year, Mr. Callahan went back and said, we're still way behind the 8 ball in recovery of cost. We'll have to go to 8%. So pre-2012 is limited to their cost of insurance going up 8% annually per year. That's the max it can go up.
And that's what we've done this year. So we've held to that, so that prior to 2012, retirees, their increase this year was 8%. So just to kind of give you a quick overview of, none of that group, of 55 retirees get a monthly city subsidy. So they don't have that offset. They don't have that monthly offset. So again, that's kind of why that 8% was there. Their current monthly premiums range, and I wish I could give you a solid answer as to why, but they range anywhere from $79 a month to $1,058. Obviously, depending on the type of insurance that they have, that's the range that we're looking at. But in that 55 group, there's $79 is the lowest, $1,058 is the highest. So in that group also, 47 of the 55 are eligible for for Medicare insurance. Then you have the retired after 2012.
And I just want to interject now about those premiums between 79 and 1058 that you see. The program we offer is very similar to the program that we offer. It's the same program that we offer to active employees. It's the employee only. It's the employee plus one. It's the employee plus family. And so those costs are considerably less if it's just the employee only. And there'd be different personal circumstances which would dictate that selection by the employee.
Correct.
And so that's kind of important to understand as well.
Correct. And then after so if you retired in 2012 or after, you typically would get a stipend. There are so out of the 124, and I realize that my numbers don't match up, but it should be 8 retirees are not Medicare eligible. But out of that 124, only 13 of them do not receive a city subsidy. So you can see the shift of prior to 2012, no city subsidy. After 2012, the vast majority get the subsidy that Mr. Perry was talking about earlier.
And just real quickly on that, why they wouldn't receive a city subsidy, there are certain individuals there's some cases where there was litigations and deals made to resolve that, to say, okay, you can get on, retirement's good, but you might not have the 20 years to receive the stipend. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to research it to get those 13. We've looked at a few of them, but we haven't looked at all of them. But you might be asking the question, why would someone get a stipend and why wouldn't other people? And generally speaking, it's 20-year minimum qualification for the retiree health care benefit, and then depending on your years of service, the stipend is increased throughout.
Right, exactly. So, and a key factor to recognize too, after 2012 or 2012 or later retirees had a one-time increase in 10 years of 3%. And that was true for active employees as well. So, bless you. So the next slide kind of shows that, right? So this is the history, the 10-year look-back history that we kind of analyzed. And this is the total health care. But our total increase from 2013 to 2023 is $6.3 million. So that's how much insurance has gone up. It's gone up 248% in that 10-year period. And again, after 2012 retirees and active employees only received one increase, and that was in the fiscal year of 2018 of 3%.
You can see that depicted fairly well on that right-hand chart of the left-hand half, where that 3%. We talked to Mr. Huffman and Rocco about this, and they were shocked and said, why didn't the city incrementally raise these at least on an annual basis, opposed to waiting 10 years or one increase in 10 years? It's a good question. I can't answer that. Right. And it's one of those things about, I think we were trying to be generous and shoulder and board in the cost, but no good deed goes unpunished, because now we're at a tipping point. We have to recover some of these costs, and we have significant increases all at once. And that is a problem. Right. That is a problem. Okay, so moving on. So now, so that's just kind of a back history of the pre-2012 and post-2012. So that's one segment. Now just going to that 179 retirees of Medicare eligible to non-Medicare eligible, because really that's what we're here today for.
is to vote on the contract for our Medicare Advantage plan that
It
we
only
that we
applies,
provide.
this contract only applies to those folks that are Medicare eligible.
Correct.
And the reason why it's a good deal is for a couple of different reasons. First is, as I pointed out, Medicare, we pay into it weekly, monthly, whatever it is, but we pay into it out of our gross taxable income. And the idea is that the federal government will provide a health care plan for us when we're 65, which they do. And it's a pretty good plan, but it's not a full plan. So you have reimbursements where they might pay for a particular service, and the patient, the claimant, would still owe a certain amount of money. So they use the city's plan as a supplemental plan, and they're paying a full premium. If you have whether it's an employee plus one or whatever, you're paying a full premium to use us as the supplement to Medicare. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, both from the patient's perspective, the employee, the retiree's perspective, and certainly not from the city's, to do that. There's some reasons why, like if you leave, you can't come back. There are some scenarios where I could see people going, well, I just feel better with the city plan. But you can obtain these Part B or Part C plans, which this is. It's a supplemental plan at a great deal more cost, and you still, under the city plan, have a stop loss, so you got to pay your first $2,500 or $3,500. You still have different co-pays and things like that, whereas this plan doesn't have it. And so I think Mr. Huffman and Rocco said, that's a pretty good idea. That's a pretty good idea, and I'd like to hear from them at some point, because we have been working in good faith trying to solve these problems.
Okay, so out of our 179 retirees, our Medicare eligible are 98, non-Medicare eligible are 81. So this contract doesn't apply to the non-Medicare eligible ones. Those are the ones that will continue to work on our program, continue to work on our plan, and continue to work with Mr. Huffman and Mr. Salvatore to not just for, and I respect them dearly, but not just for fire. This is for all of our retirees, for our fire, our police officers, our city employees. We're going to take the next year and dissect it to come up with a good plan that fits, it's beneficial for the city and beneficial for the retirees. But it's going to take some time. However, again, what we're here for today is our Medicare eligible. So a breakdown of that, 98 right to retirees. The average monthly current monthly premium is $343. That is inclusive of their stipend. Okay, so that's what they're paying on average every month. This insurance, the city insurance that they're using, again, like Mr. Perry stated, it's used as a secondary insurance. So whatever Medicare is not fulfilling, they're using the city insurance to fulfill the difference. However, the rules of our city insurance still apply with the deductibles, with the premiums, or with the co-insurance and so forth. So it's really not a good fit. It's not a good fit as a secondary type of insurance. It does have some benefits, but not compared to what we're going to show you. So this is an alternative to that. So the first alternative, and I hope you can see that, because now I realize it's pretty tough to see.
Yeah.
Put your glasses on, because I don't have mine.
That doesn't help.
Audience will be able to see.
But what you're looking at is a comparative. So on the left side, so on the right side of the slide, the very first comparative is the current city PPO. Can't see it?
I can't, I'm sorry.
I can't read it. I'm very sorry.
All right.
The audience won't be able to see it.
Yeah, this is
The audience can't see it either.
Why don't you just explain a little bit about what you're trying to do?
So the first comparative is our PPO plan, the city's current PPO plan, right? So your current deductible is $750. Your maximum out of pocket is $3,600, I believe. So that's what you're paying. Okay, so that's even as secondary insurance, that's still what you're paying. With the Advantage plan that we have for Medicare options, the max. So one, there's no deductible, and two, the max out of pocket is $1,000. So co-pays, hospital visits, and so forth. So just in those two things alone, you're saving, and I'll show you on a couple next slides that might make it a little easier to read. You're saving money just in those two factors. The other thing is there's a lot of a lot of doctor's visits, a lot of medicines that don't have a cost in this Advantage plan. Compared to our current health insurance, we all know that there are costs. If I go to the doctor, it costs me $25. If I'm on the Advantage plan, I go to the doctor, it costs me nothing. So that's one option. So just to kind of set the record straight too, the Advantage plan only covers the PPO comparatives. So our PPO, the first PPO plan, and then we also have an HSA plan that's a PPO. It does not have an HMO option. Okay.
The other thing to point out is that this is entirely a voluntary program.
Correct.
We're asking you to approve allowing us to offer this to employees through Florida Blue as an alternative. The employee may say, no, I still want my city plan. I want to pay a higher premium. I want to be exposed to more out-of-pocket cost. I want to have more copays, but because I just love the city. And Economics 101 will tell you that most consumers are what you call rational maximizers. They'll make rational economic decisions. In the vast majority of cases, I think that employees would be better served with this plan to eliminate that downside economic risk and cost. And we have to do a better job of explaining that too, though, because it's complicated.
Right. So, yeah, so to that, so I went ahead and skipped the next slide because it's just one we wouldn't be able to read. So the next slide is a comparative, right? So I took a retiree that currently pays $181 a month that is Medicare eligible, it's on Medicare. So for Plan B, they have to have Plan B, they're already paying the $164.90. So their total out of pocket for the city insurance and Medicare is $345.90. So when you look at the current city plan, you break all that down versus the Medicare Advantage. So the premium is $358.35, but it covers Plan A, B, C, and D. And then Plan B is $164.90. That Plan B you have to have. So that's a Medicare stipulation. That's not the city stipulation. So your total out of pocket is $523.25 on a monthly basis. So the difference of that is $77.35. Again, this is for specific to a retiree that pays $181 for the city's insurance. So if you look at the deductible and your maximum out of pocket, annual out of pocket, under the city insurance is $750 deductible, $3,500 max out of pocket. So your total in the year could be $4,250. Under the Medicare Advantage, it's $1,000. So the difference there is you're saving $3,250 just on cost alone. And again, this doesn't take into consideration the co-pays, all the things that have no cost to the recipient. So if you were to hit your maximum, your deductible, your maximum out of pocket on your current city plan plus the Plan B for Medicare or versus the Medicare Advantage and Plan B Medicare, you're actually going to say, if you're on Medicare Plan B and the Advantage plan that we're offering or that we're hoping to have approved, you're actually saving $1,000 every year on this plan. No changes in benefits. No change. You're not missing out on the coverage. You're not missing out on the care. From what we understand, most physicians are accept these plans, so there's not a lot of transition. There is a huge cost savings. So again, we talked about the average retiree pays $343, right? Average Medicare eligible retiree pays $343. So this is a low end example. Well, let's go to a different example on a little higher end. So, and we do have retirees that are Medicare eligible that pay $489 for their city of Bradenton health insurance, used as a secondary insurance. They also have to pay for Plan B, Medicare Plan B. So their total out of pocket is $653.90. Now this retiree in particular gets a stipend also. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned the prior retiree did not get a stipend. So this one actually gets a stipend. So their total monthly premium is $653.90 compared to the Medicare Advantage of $523.25. You add in the city subsidy, the net is they pay on the city plan with Plan B is $353.90. On the Medicare Advantage with Plan B is $223.25. So they're actually saving $130 a month going to this option. So their 12-month savings is $1,500. Factor that down with the same deductibles that we had previously, and their savings annually is almost $5,000. Again, for this plan, minimal change, hardly any changes at all in care and coverage. So this is why we wanted to offer, when we looked at it, we wanted to find out what is it that what was on the market that we could offer our Medicare eligible retirees, because it had to be better than the city insurance. And we worked with Brown & Brown, we worked with Florida Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and came up with a group offered Medicare Advantage plan. And I quote from the Blue Cross and Blue Shield rep, "I wish we had this plan." This plan is not even offered to them, but the city has it. And then we have it offered to our Medicare eligible retirees. Now, we understand change is tough. I get it. We're not trying to, again, like Mr. Perry said, this is voluntary, but we have options now. We have an option to the city insurance. We have a Medicare alternative that gives the complete coverage, and on top of that can actually save our Medicare eligible retirees some money.
Let me wrap things up with that detailed presentation. Is that, again, it's a voluntary program to start with. In our discussions with the union and some of our finance team and HR team, we agreed basically to try to take a year and look at what we could do to solve this increased cost problem, this increased premium problem, and that as an interim, the city would pick up 25% of the cost increase. And that's what we're proposing, basically. So we're not going to be able to recover 100%. We have to make some adjustments. It's going to cost somewhere on the order of around $100,000 to the city and the like. But it certainly absorbs a lot of the blow to the retirees. Not all of it. There still will be an increase in their retiree health care cost to some, and particularly those, again, that are in that non-Medicare eligible component. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and there's other options we're looking at. One question might be, Mr. Perry, why didn't you consider all of these previously? And Lance started with this, which is, we were on the insurance committee. We were focused, probably too much overly focused, on active employees and that cost, and really didn't drill down deep enough on this part. I have to, plead guilty on that front. The other thing that really became problematic is that, remember, we have an open enrollment. Our enrollment period is basically currently right now, we're in open enrollment. And so we had to make these changes, and if you were on the insurance committee, you'll remember that we were under the gun there too, just as much for active employees, to try to deal with the problem of the increasing cost and an equitable distribution of shared in these cost increases, along with a shot clock that was ticking day by day up to the period of open enrollment, which we just went through. We were able to get Florida Blue to extend that, but at the end of the day, our contracts are only through a certain period of time. And so that's where we're at, and that's why we need more extra time. The good news is that most of the retirees have submitted their paperwork. There's some that I think still haven't, but I think all of the fire folks have. And lastly, it was pointed out by Lance and missed by me, and I'm remiss to the extent of, this isn't just about firefighters. This is about police officers, and it's about general service employees too. The interesting thing about general service employees is that because they're FRS employees, and FRS has a stipend too, so you could get a city stipend and an additional FRS stipend if you're general service that will defray your cost. Generally speaking, most of your public safety people are not, because they're in private pension programs, not the FRS system. So they wouldn't be able to avail themselves to the FRS. And ultimately, it is in all the union contracts. If you have any questions about that, it's in the collective bargaining agreements. But it's generally speaking that we will provide a health care plan and that we will share in the cost. I think it's in Article 30 of the Suncoast Firefighters Pension in our collective bargaining agreement. And of course, they use Suncoast as their pension administrator, I believe. But that's where we're at. And today, we're only asking you to approve this this secondary supplemental insurance program for retirees, and we'll stand for any questions.
I do have one quick statement
Please.
on the Medicare Advantage. Just at the bottom there, it says that there's an option for $10 additional a month for vision, dental, and hearing coverage also. So this comes with that
Yeah.
as a
And
suggestion.
completely not each? It's not
No,
$10
no, that for all
each?
three.
For all three.
It covers all three, yes.
Which is a lot cheaper than our plan that doesn't have those components. And I did speak with Mr. Huffman just now, and I don't know if the council and chair would be interested, but I don't know if he wants to opine on where we're at and give some just brief comments.
And I've got some thoughts on how we'll
Okay, he
handle
was willing
that,
to do that.
as well as with Mr. Huffman and also
Yeah.
Mr. Gallo, some
Okay, very good.
for a historical perspective while he was a council member, so,
Okay.
all right. Ms. Coker?
Well, I guess my question will probably be answered with that, because I was trying to determine what coverages they're not going to be getting if they go with the new Medicare Advantage. I mean, what would be missing? That was my question.
Yeah, that's not, the Medicare Advantage is representative of the coverage that the city insurance has as well.
So they're not
Actually, a little bit
losing any
more.
care whatsoever?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Other questions?
Just
Yes, Ms. Moore?
regarding this particular plan that we're voting on, did I see both slides correctly, that the premium, regardless of your category, is $358 and some
Correct.
change?
Correct.
And so the savings, and that might mean that your premium goes up, but that the savings is generated by the elimination of co-pays and deductibles?
Correct, exactly. Yeah, so your net out is the savings.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I put this together, very quickly, I didn't look at, because each situation is gonna be different, right? Because if I go to the doctor 10 times and you go 2 times, obviously, there's gonna be a cost difference, right? So it's hard to say, okay, here's on average, here's what we do. But what I wanted to show was, regardless of how many times you go to the doctor, regardless of how many prescriptions you get, everybody pays the same, pays the same maximum amount of pocket. You pay the same deductible, right? So if we're both on this program, we pay the same regardless, and that's $1,000 maximum out of our pocket. Versus our city health insurance, 2 options is either $3,500 or $3,600, depending on which one you have. So, and then when you talk about coverage, obviously there may be one-offs, right? Because again, insurance is tough to say. Yeah, just here's a blanket coverage and everybody's covered and it's fine, it's all the same. But the one-offs, we can look at those separately, but when you look at the whole, this is a good package for our Medicare eligible retirees. It saves them money, it gives them the coverage they need. It's easy to manage. It's actually not, we keep calling it a subsidy, it's really not. What it does is it encompasses plans A, B, C, and D. And it says, okay, you have one plan. They actually give you a different card. So there's a red, white, and blue card. I don't have one, but I've seen them before, that they give you. So, but they give you, so it replaces the current card that you have. So it allows you to manage the program much easier, on top of all the other benefits that come with it.
Thank you.
That is, yes. And would you prefer that, that the gentleman speak before we ask questions about the other issue?
Yes. Okay, but Ms. Barnaby has a question.
I just wanted to make sure that I wrote this down correctly. At this point in time, it's believed that most of the doctors in our community will accept the Medicare Advantage plan, so people do not have to change physicians.
Correct.
And I had one other thing.
We can come back to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kramer?
Thank you, sir. You mentioned the post-2012 retirees have only seen a one-time 3% increase. Have the pre-2012 received the 8% every year?
Every year.
That's, wow.
But again, sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
But again, they typically have a lower premium.
Right.
So to say 8% every year sounds like a lot. Well, if I'm starting at $70, it's really not, so.
Understood.
Yeah.
Is it and Mr. Perry, maybe you can answer this better. Is it a shame on us as the insurance committee for never having asked Florida Blue for this option for our retirees? Because, I mean, here we are scrambling after the insurance committee and the council have already taken action to put forth costs, and now all of a sudden Florida Blue is like, oh, we can do it. We can do this for you.
I think we were under a time crunch, clearly. I think I can say that. I felt that we were. I know that we brought Nicole, Danielle in, and she gave a presentation, and then we had a second meeting that looked at some options, and then we had a final decision-making meeting, and that all happened fairly quickly.
Right, but I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about every year. I mean,
Yeah.
this has been going on for some time.
I
Is
think
it
if
just
you
a
look at
situation of Florida Blue, in your opinion, trying to make money and not offering a better option to our, that's going to save the city, not only employees, but the city, a better bottom line?
I think we probably should have been keener to look at our cost and our offerings throughout the years, and it was probably fairly easy just to say, well, you know, we can absorb it and kick the can down the road. So there's a lot of shame on us, because at the end of the day, there's no free lunch in the world. You earn everything you get, and we needed to deal with it. As you looked at that one chart about the increasing cost, this isn't a mushroom patch that just popped up overnight. Mm-hmm. When you look at a 10-year longitudinal study, you can see it increasing every year.
Mr. Kramer, I get where you're coming from, and you know, shame
Well,
on us for not doing it.
Well, I mean,
And you were on the insurance committee.
That's what I was-
Ms.
that's what I was
Barnaby's been on the insurance committee over the years, obviously not the last 10 years. I was never on the insurance committee, but until now. But I know Mr. Gallo was a strong supporter of that over the years as a council member on the insurance committee, and he would bring back to the council and explain some of the cost factors, and that's why I want to give him an opportunity to talk more where he couldn't under citizen comment because we have to stick by our rules. But I think when we look back, there could have been, and if it was Florida Blue not giving us that opportunity, then we've got to justify why. But if you look back, there was a lot of years early on that we didn't have the big losses, and we had actually built up a surplus. So we were able to use the surplus money to offset why we didn't increase. So I think we might have looked worse if we'd have said, okay, we got this surplus and we're raising your fee. So that could be an explanation, and it hurts now because that surplus went away. But think about your car insurance, think about your house insurance, think about everything that we're doing now. It's hitting everywhere. So, you know, I agree with you about looking back, and I think that's some of the tough questions now that you and I are both on the insurance committee we're asking. But it's that double-edged sword right now that we got to figure it out. And I know it had been asked in the past, especially to one retiree that I know very well, that they stayed on the city insurance instead of going to the Medicaid or Medicare parts, and it was $30 more to stay on the city than it was to switch. But it's the human nature of the fear of what if.
The unknown.
Right, the unknown. And $30 isn't that much when you think about it. But $30 to the city from the coverage became overwhelming with a bunch. So I don't know if, I would like Mr. Gallo to come up first if he would have any more perspective on, unless I said what you think, as the why we didn't increase it over the years, because we were being told about the surplus, and finally the surplus ran out.
Well, and can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So to kind of answer your question, I think, again, hindsight's 20/20, right? The Monday afternoon quarterback can always say, well, you shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think really the city looked at, especially historically, looked at our pay You know, one of the things we always sell are our benefits. We have great insurance. We have great benefits, right? The pensions, everything from top to bottom. So I think historically, when it was reviewed, it was like, well, what can we give? We can't give you a higher pay increase, right? So we're going to give you a better benefit. So I think there's the should have, maybe a little bit, yeah, but I also think that it was a comparative of, let's make our benefits robust and let's make them, part of our package to attract employees. And I think too, the other thing that we should have done probably in the past, again, hindsight, and the best thing we've done now is get an agent of record, right? None of us are health insurance experts, none of us. We bring an expert in, that's all they do. She was fantastic. Her group was fantastic. They analyzed, dissected, our health insurance left, right, and, up and down. And they really helped us understand our health insurance better.
To make it where we could give the best benefit to the retirees and the employees while saving the city money, and putting a little bit an oversight on Florida Blue, the group we were with.
Exactly. So, and the last thing I want to say is thank you to Mr. Huffman, Mr. Salvatore for their input. We respect the group, appreciate their efforts and time. I also want to thank the city administration team with Nilsa and Shamika, myself, Linda, Mary, Mr. Perry. We put a lot of time and effort into trying to give with the best that we could. So I just want to thank everybody for their input, and we'll continue to make it as best we can. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
May I?
So, yes, did you want to talk before? Or?
Just very, very extremely briefly, if I may. To the question, my aerial of the situation is that it was probably a policy decision. And how we got that surplus, from what I understand, was also a policy decision, because that meant that people were paying less than, we created that by collecting premiums from people that was less than or more than what they actually cost us. So I think at this moment, I think what we're trying to do is come up with policy for us to decide on that makes the most sense financially from a cost perspective, but that also prioritizes retirees and also what kind of benefits we offer people. This is my understanding of the history and how we are here today.
I just want to address it kind of from a common sense perspective, that surplus, because if you do look at those years, it was kind of flat for a period of time. Again, our insurance costs are about driven probably 80% by claims experience. If we have a lot of people that are receiving medical procedures and services, it's going to increase because we're self-insured. It's no different than a hurricane. For years, you can go without a hurricane hitting a certain area of the country, of the state of Florida, or the like, and insurance rates kind of seem to stay the same, right? And then all of a sudden, you get 2 or 3 hurricanes that are major, and you have all of this claims experience and loss, and everybody's pulling out of the insurance market. Or they're jacking their rates 200, 300%. That's an actuarial issue with trying to normalize a cost over time that's very difficult to do economically because it's unpredictable. But with healthcare, there is a certain degree of predictability as it relates to healthcare inflation cost, as it relates to the cost of the services, as well as a deeper dive onto the claims experience. So I can't fault people for not raising rates, if you weren't having those claims experiences that were shocking you. At the same time, you can't fault people for not knowing when the hurricane's going to hit. And we got hit with a hurricane on insurance. You can look at it that way. When you see it go from the $4 million to the $9 million cost, the 248% increase.
And I agree with you, Ms. Moore, that it was the policy perspective, because I was part of that policy decision going forward. And Mr. Callahan did, and if Mr. Gallo can correct me if I'm wrong, that Mr. Callahan said this will catch up to us one day by not doing increases. And he, so, now that's that day, unfortunately. But, we kicked the can down the road as long as we could. And unfortunately, it is. So, Mr. Gallo, I wanted to give you opportunity to kind of give some of your perspective as the, council member, policy part of it, as well as, you've given us a lot of the history of what has happened, but maybe there's some perspective there you can give why you think we made those policy decisions. Going through most of those 10 years or 8 years of that you were here.
And may I ask some questions also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, I want to admit that listening to your presentation, which I guess is very good, but I have to go back and remind myself that when I was fire chief and talking with the actuary for our pension plan, when he got done, I told him I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. So he basically told me, he says, well, what do you want? I can make these numbers do whatever you want, a yes or a no. So the first thing I'd like to ask you, and then I'll cover some of those things you talk about. Who is RX Benefits?
Maybe, is Nilsa?
That is going to be the RX benefits.
That's what it sounds like.
Prescription administrators, who I'm assuming it is.
Okay, did the letters we get come from City Hall or from them, or?
It was,
I don't know what letters that you'd be referring to. If you could show
The
me.
letters telling you what kind of medicine they're not going to pay for that you've been taking for 20 years.
I'd imagine that they probably came from RX Benefits, who is the
Company that you all hired?
Yeah, they handle just the prescription piece.
Okay, that's the first thing I want to talk about
Yep.
then. I got 2 letters, not 1, but 2. The first one, they have what they call impacted medication. Now, I don't know what that means. And then they have the alternatives. So I'm assuming the impacted is what they do not want you to take, and they got the alternative is what they want you to
like
take.
a
in place.
generic brand
Okay.
of it, right?
Well, not necessarily generic. I have COPD. So I'm using, well, actually, to be honest with you, I quit using it because I didn't like it. But this is going to show an example of what this company's doing. Brazetti Aerosphere, which was an inhaler. And then I also took one time Umbrevli for migraine headaches, and I saw what that stuff cost, and I told my doctor, I said, I do not want that prescribed for me ever again. That's the 2 that were impacted. They said my alternative, which is a non-generic, was Januvia. And my doctor looked at me when I showed him this, said, what? The medicine that they were telling me I couldn't take was for migraines and for COPD. Januvia is for blood sugar diabetics too. Now that company told me I could take that and place, and I was already taking that because I'm diabetic too. So I'm a little bit worried about that company. The second letter I got, they went after my blood sugar medicine, my insulin, and told me that the alternative, and I can't even tell you the name because it's Spanish, Laturias Tolillo, which I've never heard of. It may come from Mexico, I'm not sure, but that's what they want me to take. My Venlin for my asthma, I could take any other kind but that, because that doesn't have a generic. You really have to look into that, Mr. Mayor. I don't think these folks know what they're doing. Okay. Back to the insurance committee, which I sat on, I think, from probably day one with every insurance company we've ever had when the 29 years I was on city council. I can't tell you that the 8% policy ever came up at a insurance meeting. I can't tell you it did or didn't. I do not remember it coming up. The financial aspect of the insurance plan was very seldom discussed in the when Mayor Wayne Poston was chairman of it, Carl was in the room with us, and I represented the city council. That never really basically came up too much. It was basically talking about people who had a certain medication they were taking. We had a police officer that came in who had a child that needed medication that Blue Cross said, no, we will not pay for it. Came and appealed to us, and we said, yes, we'll pay for it. You know, things like that's what came up. And Blue Cross would always give us, and the other company, I even forgot who they were, statistics. But all that stuff I normally always reported to the city council at the next council meeting. So if there was an 8% discussion about it, it should have been be in the council minutes somewhere. My question is, in 2020, or 2020, I guess that's 2020, while that's the year I left, but up to that point, I remember that we were told we had over $1 million in reserves in the insurance program. Right after that, COVID appeared. My understanding in listening to the news that the medical part of that, doctors, people quit going to doctors, and operations were at a low because of COVID. So what happened to that $1 million? Now, at one time, the state required us to spend some of the reserves because we had too much money in the medical reserve, and they said you need to spend it on, and it had to be spent on medical stuff. I don't know, and that's why I was shocked to hear that we were overboard the other direction. If an employee goes with the Advantage plan, is the city going to still pay the stipend to the employee?
They're shaking their head yes.
So we'll be paying our bill, but you'll be giving us an extra, like I get a $300 stipend, and you will. How will that get to me?
If there's a surplus, you get a check.
A surplus.
If your cost was less of insurance, then you would get that difference as a tax payment.
Okay, but the retirees will not lose their stipend.
No.
Okay, does this plan pay for prescriptions and doctors?
Yes.
Advantage?
Yes, because it encompasses Part D.
None of this is on the record.
It's what?
It encompasses Part D, the prescription.
Now, when you say encompasses, does that mean you have to have Part D?
No, what I mean is that it covers it, like now, Medicare.
It can't.
Part D.
Yeah, maybe
Mr.
come
Mayor,
forward so we can get
please.
what's be on the record. And I know this is kind of a little out of, but I think that the questions that you have, and a lot of times until it's specific to somebody, which a lot of the same people may have that same question because they
Right.
get the same letter. I think this is the good dialogue
Well-
to have because it does answer those questions, and you being kind of the chief leader of the council for all those years, that's why I felt it was important to give you
Well,
some time
the
here.
people that went to the meeting here said that the acoustics were so bad in the auditorium, they couldn't understand half what the person was saying.
But even-
So these are some of the questions that,
The confusion in insurance, there's several of us up here, if you ask the same question, we're gonna get 6 different answers. So I appreciate you asking these questions to get it, so.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Mayor, Council, for the record, I'm Shamika Stander for the Human Resources Manager. And to answer, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I was in your way.
It's okay. And to address and answer a couple of Mr. Gallo's questions. As far as RX benefits, the reason why they sent those letters was not just to say they're not covering the prescription, but it was to look at it because there's a formulary and a non-formulary prescription. And as we all know, the higher the prescription, the higher your copay. So what RX Benefits was doing was sending out those letters so that, because for retirees and for active employees, to make sure that their doctor is looking at the whole picture for the employee or retiree. So it's not that it's not going to be covered. As the letter states, is that as long as the doctor is saying that there's no other alternative, it will still be covered as normal.
And that is a discussion that we at length talked about in the insurance committee.
Yes, right.
That if it's, if it's this brand and that's the only thing, their retiree is still going to get that brand.
Yes, sir.
Or if the doctor wants it brand specific. But if you can change to generic to help save the whole plan and maybe even use some money on your deductible,
Right.
that we would do that. So that was, like Mr. Gallo and I have discussed that.
Yes.
That we did say that if it's a brand X and you have to have brand X, you'll get it.
You'll get it.
So,
Yes, sir. And then also to explain about the prescription coverage for the Medicare Advantage plan. So the Medicare Advantage plan encompasses all of Part A, B, C, and D. So currently, right now, if you are on Medicare, Part D is a separate prescription benefit that you have to purchase in order to have that supplement for prescriptions. What this Advantage plan does, it encompasses all of that into one, so you don't have to pay for it separate. And actually, there are more prescriptions covered under Part D than currently, honestly, under our city plan right now. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's an important issue because a lot of people are concerned about the prescription drugs getting away from us.
Right.
And do I understand that we're going to presently stay on the present plan that we have with the city for another year?
I think it was optional, wasn't it? Did I see that?
Or are we changing in October?
I don't understand that. Yeah.
Pardon me?
Chief, I'm not sure I understand the question. When you
Well-
say stay on the current plan.
Yeah, with the city.
Yep.
Is that still available after October? Like, that's what I signed up for. I didn't, because I do not understand.
Okay, I believe it is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, it
but
is
an
an option.
increase.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
And the increase to retirees are all the same?
Depending on whether it's you plus one or a family plan, it should be
Right.
the same, right.
Well,
Yeah. But ultimately,
Come a little closer to the
I'm
microphone.
sorry, ultimately, it also has to, the increase is the same, yes. Your overall cost could be different because you might get a different stipend than someone else does.
yeah. Well, this is what you sent out.
Right.
And that will be where I lay, and that is more than what I pay now. So there will be an increase.
Yes, sir.
May I try to?
Okay. Off the hand, did you use a certain percent for everybody, or was the percent different for people?
No, it was the same.
Okay, do you know what percent was increased?
Lance?
I thought it was 25%.
Well, he can't go up more than 8.
Hmm?
He's pre-2012, he can't go up more than 8.
Because I heard of one firefighter whose insurance increased $300 and some odd dollars a month.
Depends what level,
Right.
8%, different.
Yeah. If you have the family plan,
No.
no, if you have the family plan, it could have gone up 331. I remember one of the people that we were talking to had that situation.
Rocco.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we did was after that meeting is we adjusted the premium to a 25-75 split. So 75% of the total cost, so let me show you. So this cost, right, so for this plan, 75% of that is borne by the retiree and 25% is by the city, which drops this premium down.
Okay,
But-
but what percent did you use for everybody non-family? Let's say we'll go to one category.
You mean
Did you use
individual
8%,
employee?
15, 20%? What was the increase?
25%
25%
across the
increase.
board,
Okay.
correct.
And that is one question that I have that has been burning up my cell phone. Why couldn't you increase it at a smaller amount and start just keeping that going? To hit some of these people all at one time. Now, there are people that it's really gonna hurt because their retirement plans that work for the city, and I'm not specifically talking about firefighters. These guys, you know, they gave their life to the city, their young life. They hurt themselves. Our garbage haulers, they used to carry 50-gallon buckets on the back and have to go to the backyard and get the garbage and walk out front and dump it in there. And if they're still alive, and some of them are, they're hurting. And their pensions are, well, you know, you've seen what the pensions are. So to hit them with a 25%, it's, in my heart,
Well, we could means test, but I think we'd have equal people saying, why am I treated differently? Everybody should receive the same type of treatment. Means testing would say, okay, you do have the ability, you're working a second job. We get into
I think
some-
we need to kind of.
I think we need
I
to-
think there's some more things we can discuss, but,
Okay.
but the reason I thought this was important, because for those retirees that can hear it, and in reality, and I think, if I remember this correctly, through the insurance committee, it was actually recommended to go up to 50%, not 25%, that 25% would at least start the process, where if we'd have been 3% a year, we might, you know, you'd have been a lot more over the 10-year period. So, again, it's not a perfect system, and, you know, I wanted to give you opportunity to kind of get some of your questions, because I know they will have the same question.
well, most of them are theirs.
So Ms. Barnaby had a question.
Well, my question is, as we saw in the presentation, there were individuals with their retirement system, if they retired prior to
2012.
2012, by contract, theirs can only go up 8%, is that correct? Correct. So if they retired prior to 2012, are we abiding by that contract and they are not part of the 25% increase? It's only the people after 2012?
I believe so.
Yes, that's correct. And Ms. Barnaby, I think one of the things was said earlier, if you're paying $79, and 8%, you know, you can figure, let's say $100, 8% is $8. Where if you're you know, so they're not really getting the huge increase, because most of them, I think, were around, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Williams, because we ran the whole list. I asked them to go from top to bottom, and you looked at them, most of them are around $100 and some, so 8% isn't like a huge increase. It's more, and it's, you know, huge for a lot, but
Per month?
8%, yeah, so if their payment was 100, it goes to 108. But.
Oh,
if-
okay.
Yeah, no, it only, for 100, but if you're getting if it's 300, you get an 8%, obviously it's incremental, you can do the math, but I think that's, some of the stuff we've talked about, at least get some of that other information out, especially with the prescriptions.
All right,
Because
that's important.
And you and I talked about that at length one night, a week or so ago.
So we ran out of beer.
Yeah, well, I was on the phone, so, but it was.
You don't drink.
I don't drink either.
He doesn't drink and you don't drink. You're up here causing trouble, you know that.
But no, it was just something that was important to get the information out. We've kind of got to move on because we've done this for about an hour, and I think, but it was important to say, we are trying. It's not something that the city just is going to the maximum that the insurance committee, or the Florida Blue, and those were telling us, but.
Well, I know and respect that you're trying. I understand that. It's, in my heart, my job to steer you in the right direction. And I just want to repeat, you know, one word, again, is priority. You've got to do that in your mind, what makes you comfortable. It's not what you want, it's what you can afford. And if you want something that maybe can wait a couple years, and you need the money for the medical field, priority for employees. I'm not speaking just for firefighters. Because as you know, when I sat on the council, the employees was my thing.
All 500, 600. and-
Exactly. And I have gentlemen that I haven't seen in years that are still working for the city that happen to come by to work for Public Works, and, oh, Mr. Gallo, we miss you, you know, so makes me feel good, but my heart's there, and I hope you put your heart there. Without your employees, this city is nothing. Nothing. You got to keep them happy and healthy.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Huffman, Ms. Salvatore, Mr. Salvatore?
Mayor, Council, thank you. We could talk about this for the rest of the week and beyond, but so I'll be brief. I have good news. I've had some we have had some.
Say your name and.
I'm sorry.
Record, I'm sorry.
Doug Huffman. I'm the union rep for the firefighters. We've had. You need my address too? Sorry. No. We have had some preliminary talks with Mr. Perry and Mr. Williams and Ms. Taylor, and Rocco and I both were extremely encouraged by how those conversations went. We have what we've done to this point is a Band-Aid. For the next 12 months, we're going to put a Band-Aid on this thing and at least slow the bleeding down a little bit. But going forward, and hopefully after the 1st of October, or maybe the 1st of the year at the latest, we're going to do a deep dive in this thing. We're going to start peeling back some of the layers of this onion, and Rocco is brilliant, has some great ideas, I think, that are going to be good for all of us. It's going to provide relief to both sides, to both parties, if you will. And I think then once we get that in place, I think going forward it's applicable to everyone. I think the cops can do it. I think general employees can do it. It's a great help to you and us as well. So what I want to say, I guess, so we can you guys can wrap it up and move on. I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak. I'm thankful for the opportunity to sit with them. I'm thankful for what you've provided for us, the things that this very benevolent council has done for us, for all of us, over the 35 plus years that I've been affiliated with you all, or with the city. I can't say enough how much we appreciate that and how much we're looking forward to solving this really complicated issue. But I think in time, we'll all be very pleased with the outcome.
And thank you for both of you and be willing to meet with the administration and work to the
You bet.
the plus of the city. So.
You bet. It's our pleasure.
Is there any questions from council?
You need a motion?
So Ms. Barnaby.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I just, while Chief Councilman Gallo is here, you haven't been able to join us for the past several months. I feel like sometimes I jokingly call myself Jeanette Gallo because I bring the historical perspective that you always brought to this council. And you and I both know that for years and years, the city paid all of their employees a very, very low wage, and that does affect their retirement benefits. However, our insurance and the benefits that we provided as a city have been very good. And we have done things to try to keep those costs down. We instituted a health fair, and we started working with our employees to explain to them that the emergency room is the office of last resort when it comes to trying to receive medical care, that there are many other options. When I first started on this council, we had many employees that did not have a primary physician. So we had to do a very strong education program to explain how the insurance program worked and what was the best bang for your buck when you needed medical care. Where did you start, and why it was important to have a primary physician. I think that when I started here, we had over 600 and some odd employees, and then we went through periods where when an employee would retire or leave to take another job, we did not fill that position. So we got down to close to just 500 employees. And of course, that's going to drop your medical costs. And I got on the insurance commission when I got back on the council in I believe it was 2020. And COVID was just ending. And we knew we had a problem with insurance costs then, but we also knew that there were a lot of our families that had suffered not only with having COVID, but many of our employees' spouses and other family members that contributed to the family income had been hit very hard with COVID. And we did not feel in good conscience back then that we could start the increases because we were just coming out of a major pandemic and we're not sure how economically we were going to survive with things. And we did not want to put the burden on our employees at that point in time. So I just share that to kind of say where we had been and where we came from. And again, we knew we were going to have a problem with the insurance, but coming out of COVID, we did not feel that ethically and morally that was the time to start increasing costs on people. So I just wanted to share that.
So we would need a motion for item K from the consent.
Well, and I pulled it, so I guess I will make the motion to approve the contract with Florida Blue effective October 1st of 2023, with the understanding that our administration is going to continue working on this issue, and we will hopefully come to a resolution that will be helpful and supportive to all of our employees and our retirees.
Second.
Second, Ms. Coger. I mean, we've had a lot of discussion kind of before the motion, but any other? All right, hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 1 to approve.
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Thank you, and we want to thank everyone for the indulgence of the more than hour discussion. So, because again, it's that important to us, and we appreciate everyone involved. And a lot of times, it's not that the answer isn't out there; it's just hard to find sometimes, especially with insurance. So, thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
The next item on the agenda is item 7A, disposition of CRA-owned property located at 413 10th Avenue East, and this is a public hearing.
All right. So, do we need any discussion before? Okay. Mr. Miles, you want to come forward and give us a synopsis, and then we can open the public hearing?
Good morning. Chris Mignon, CRA Manager. In November 2022, the CRA Board directed the CRA staff, to proceed with selling CRA-owned property at 413 10th Avenue East, PID number 46077000004. This is a three-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home, approximately 1,120 square feet. It was purchased by the CCRA in February 2006 for $135,000 and transferred to the CRA in January of 2016. Staff has evaluated the home and have an estimated value of $110,000. In February of 2023, the CRA board made the motion to approve an advertisement calling for offers on that property. In March 2nd of 2023, an advertisement to sell the CRA-owned property was published with the Bradenton Herald between March 2nd and March 31st of 2023. We received offers in for that property. At the end of the 30-day period, we got 2 offers for the property. On May 25th, the CRA board directed staff to negotiate a purchase and sell contract with Manatee Habitat for Humanity for that CRA-owned property. The offer was made by Manatee Habitat for $1. This offer being less than the fair value of the property. Per Florida statute, we have to come to the governing body and get their approval to sell this property for under the fair value, given a duly noticed public hearing. On September 1st, 2023, an advertisement noticing the public hearing for the disposition of the CRA-owned property for under fair value was published, and the date of the public hearing would be September 13, 2023. And we just asked for a motion to approve the CRA board to move forward with selling the property with Manatee Habitat for Humanity. We do have a, if approved, we do have a contract that was negotiated, proposed contract to go to the board, the CRA board this afternoon, so we can start the process of their due diligence and going forward with selling that property.
Any questions? All right, so we'll go ahead and move to the public hearing. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make the motion to approve the CRA of the City of Bradenton to enter into a purchase and sale contract with Habitat for Humanity to dispose of CRA-owned property located at 413 10th Avenue East for under market value.
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Barnaby. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
and 1.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
The next item on the agenda is the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4014, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, relating to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, amending Chapter 46, Article 3, Section 46-62 to revise quorum requirements, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And if you have any questions, Ms. Skelding is here. Answer any.
Any questions by the council? All right, so this is a second reading and public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Thank you. We'll close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 4014.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Coachman. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
and 2.
Yes.
Thank you. Approved 5-0. Madam Clerk?
The next item is the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4015, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Chapter 18, Article 2, Section 18-36 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Bradenton, Florida, entitled Unsafe Structures, to provide for the City Council to hear appeals relating to unsafe structures and to add an appeal fee, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. Does any council have any questions or concerns?
No.
All right, so we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
Motion
Coachman.
to approve ordinance 4015.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Barnaby, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3.
Yes.
Approved, 5-0. Madam Clerk?
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 23-69, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bradenton amending the city's rate and fee structure for city stormwater management fees. As provided for in Chapter 70, Sections 70-176 and 70-177 of the Code of Ordinances by increasing such fees and providing for an effective date.
Good morning, Mr. McClellan.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Joe McClellan, Director of Public Works and Utilities. This is a resolution to raise our rates for stormwater by 6%. That represents for the average residential customer 31 cents per month will be added to their bill as a means to offset the cost of labor increases, material increases, chemical increases, and electrical costs. Everything associated with operations have risen. The other thing that I will tell you is that there was a couple of rounding errors in our rate sheet, so we're printing off some right now that we'll hand out to you to have for that. But we're also in the process of conducting an audit of our utility billing associated with stormwater rates, because one of the things that we found was that this residential rate, which previously was $5.22 a month, was being applied to a significant number of larger commercial properties that are paying $5.22 per month. We're about 3/4 of the way through the process now of reviewing the 1,200 accounts and have identified approximately $300,000 of additional billings on an annual basis that we'll be able to achieve, in addition to anything associated with the residential rate that we're seeking.
All right, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McCullen, when was the last time that we increased the rates?
The last time the stormwater rates were increased was in 2021, and it was a 2% rate increase that went from $5.12 per month per residential residential property to $5.22.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the correct rate sheet.
Thank you. Lance couldn't have handed those out for you? He just brought them up to you?
I have to thank him for at least printing.
He's staying away from Mary Ann.
That's two.
That's two. All right, any other questions, or? All right, so Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2369.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Coachman, all right, any other discussion?
I just
Yes,
would
ma'am.
like to make a comment,
Yes.
and it's with regard to all three of these. I want to make sure that the citizens know that it's hard for me to sit up here and raise these rates. I just as we were just speaking with regard to the insurance, it is, these are tough times, and people are really feeling the squeeze, and I hate to be part of that squeeze with these, but it's only because of the increase. I mean, this is Bidenomics at work. So, that's all I'm saying. I just want them to know that we don't do this easily.
No, it is a tough thing, but some of it is obviously the cost increases
Of
and
everything.
also trying to help maintain a staff that you can rely on.
Well, you will have an agenda item later on that Mr. Perry will be presenting, which is approval of the ASHME contract, which represents a 15% rate increase for the ASHME staff. So that is a significant pay increase for our people and long overdue.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to echo Ms. Coker's sentiments and say that I too am struggling with increasing the rates, even though it does seem, it's seems minimal, but I still hate to do it. But I'm hoping that, just as you mentioned, equipping Public Works with what they need to function healthily will help with some of the things that citizens, I think, more routinely complain about, reliability, dependability, staffing. So that's my hope.
Well, I think just to go to a lot of it, again, none of us want to, and it's hard, but you look what the insurance committee did for 10 years, and then all of a sudden it caught up. So we're trying not to make it catch up over a long period of time, and sometimes it's a little easier to do a little bit at a time. And again, I hate increasing anything, but we have to, we are decreasing the millage rate by a fraction. So we're trying to come up with pennies here and pennies there to help out where you can. So, Ms. Coachman?
Yes, I just wanted to echo that as well. And it's the unfortunate nature of the beast in organizations such as, our governmental organization and corporations and so forth and so on. Unfortunate nature of the beast. So I just don't think it has anything to do with it being 2023. It's just the nature of the beast.
Thank you. Ms. Barnaby?
Well, and I think it's important for all of us to share and also remember that anything that we do with stormwater and water rates and garbage collection and that sort of thing, these are by state statute enterprise funds. And by state statute, they have to stand on their own. People's tax dollars do not go into enterprise funds. We are required to make sure that these funds stay healthy and that what we bring in and what we go out is the same thing. And again, I have people all the time saying, well, my taxes went up because, and it's like, no. You need to understand water, sewer, garbage, those are enterprise funds. And by state statute, we have to make sure they stay solvent.
Thank you. Mr. McCullough?
Well, I'd also just add from the stormwater side of things, we are hoping to be in a position moving forward with the stormwater fund to be able to do something similar to what we've been doing for the last 10 years in the water sewer fund, which is transferring money out of the 402 account, which is the water sewer account. We take $4 million a year and put it into the 408 so that we can do capital projects associated with water and sewers, to upgrade sewers, to upgrade lift stations, to upgrade water mains, to upgrade virtually everything associated with the system. From the stormwater side of things, we've struggled over the years to be able to do that, and to have that kind of money to be able to transfer over into projects has been limited to a couple $100,000 a year for addressing collapsing pipes as best we can, rather than addressing projects that we want to do. So.
All right, any other questions? We have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Kramer and seconded by Councilwoman Coachman. Start the vote in Ward 5.
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Madam Clerk?
The next item is Resolution 2368, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bradenton, amending the city's rate and fee structure for city water, sewer, and reclaimed water charges, as provided for in Chapter 70, Section 70-154 and 70-155 of the Code of Ordinances, by increasing such fees and providing for an effective date.
Mr. McClellan?
Again, very similar. This is a means for us to be able to raise enough funds to actively function as a water and sewer utility to cover the increased cost, specifically as it relates to the, thank you, sir.
Very good.
Specifically as it relates to the cost of chemicals and electrical costs. Our two water plants, our water treatment plant and our wastewater plant, incur significant cost associated with chemicals and electrical in order to fully function, along with the pending increase for our employees, which all encompassed represents what we're seeking to recover with a 6% rate increase. And again, there were some rounding errors on the spreadsheet, so thank you to Mr. Williams for passing those out.
Probably the general comments are the same by everybody. So,
I just have one
yes, ma'am.
question,
Yes,
if I
Ms.
may.
Moore.
when you say that that this will give you the ability to transfer into the 408, but when we do that transfer, they still are earmarked for the purposes of the capital improvement projects for your department?
Correct. Yes.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2368.
And second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Coachman. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll start the vote in Ward 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Madam Clerk?
The next item is Resolution 2370, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending the fee schedule for city garbage, trash, and recycling charges as provided for in Chapter 58, Section 58-61 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bradenton, Florida, providing for repeal of resolutions in conflict and providing for an effective date.
Mr. McClellan?
Yes. So this is one related to our residential and commercial solid waste rates. The residential rates would be going up by 6%. I will tell you that solid waste rates for the residential collection of garbage have not been increased since 2019. And in 2019, they were raised a similar 6% at that time. The commercial rate that we're seeking is a 25% increase on commercial rates. We have done an extensive investigation of our rates in comparison to the haulers in the general area, and we're about 100% less than them, which has led to a significant number of increase in our commercial accounts as the people who are finding out that we're economical are coming to us. I will tell you that this rate increase on the residential side is only on the collection. The disposal at the landfill fee is still the same. So the increase on the solid waste represents 64 cents per month per account.
And I think you mentioned about our surrounding area. Some of them are up into 3 to 4 times of what we're raising the rate.
Yeah, unfortunately, Manatee County's is a 64% increase that they're proposing. So while I don't want to say in comparison, because everything that we do, you know, theirs is private haulers, and they're subject to the whims of the contracts that they have with their private haulers that significantly have higher wage rates probably as well, that impact their process. But we run a very tight ship, and we're hopeful that with the pending union approval contract that we'll be able to raise our minimum rates for all of our employees coming in so that we can attract more people. Because again, we currently have 8 open positions in solid waste, and that creates a strain on being able to put the right amount of number of trucks on the road each week. We have plenty of trucks. It's the people that work them that we're running low on.
All right, thank you. Ms. Barnaby?
Thank you. Mr. McClellan, you and I have talked about this situation many times. We, in the past, had a extremely reliable and predictable service level. And ever since COVID, we have not necessarily had that reliability for a lot of different reasons. Not able to retain employees because CDL drivers are at a premium now, as well as having issues not only with the reoccurrence several times of COVID affecting our employees, but also the extreme heat that we had this summer and having employees go out, several having to receive medical attention because of heat exhaustion. I understand all of that, and I think that on one hand, many of our citizens understand that, but we had an expected level of service, and I'm very hopeful we are going to get back to that expected level of reliable service.
We are striving to do that as well, and we are working on some recommendations for route restructuring that we hope to bring and have ready to be able to implement by the first of the year that will help streamline that process for us on both the garbage and the yard waste collections.
For example, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I thought that my yard waste pickup in my neighborhood was on a Monday, and it's still not picked up this week. And that is what we're going to be met with when the citizens find that they're going to be having to pay more for a service that quite now, they feel right now they're not getting the service that they were accustomed to and felt that they have there's a reliability issue right now.
Yeah.
And
well, we understand, and again, we're hopeful that with increased rates for our employees and for potential to be advertising for positions at a higher rate, that we will be able to fill those positions and be more consistent in the number of people that we are able to put on the road every day related to yard waste collections.
I hope so too, sir.
Ms. Coker.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, I think that people are still somewhat smarting about not having curbside pickup of their recycles, and we told them that we did that in order to, you know, increase the reliability on the yard waste. So I think that that's kind of exacerbating the whole thing. But so I'm very hopeful that with this, we can get that a little bit more reliable. But also, during this past storm, I saw more different things out there as to what the pickup schedule was going to be. And I don't know if the pickup schedule, I got something from you, and then I saw something that was different. And it seemed like a lot of miscommunication when it came to the collection.
As far as yard waste, or?
All of it. What days? Because we were
If
switching days.
I could just comment on that. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of that has to do with when the landfill is open and different landfill, the recycle opposed to the.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
but it kept changing. It got
right.
very fluid.
And it was a changing storm. I mean, I think the county basically looked at what the projected path was and impact and tried to project out a couple of days when it changed and we weren't hit so much, they were able to modify. That's just the dynamic of a storm, I think, that had come in. And that's always going to be there when a major, incident or weather event's going to impact something like that. Good thing it wasn't like last year.
Oh, I agree.
Where, it was 2 or 3 weeks that we were trying to juggle schedules.
Well, the issue we had on our street was specifically the garbage, not the waste.
Yep.
Not the yard waste. And it was just, our day is Tuesday, and we canceled everything because the storm was coming.
Right.
And then we were told, it would probably be back on Thursday. I don't know, the whole thing and I was like, the next Tuesday, still with no pickup because of the holiday. And I was hearing different things on the TV, different things was on Facebook, and and then there were different things. I just felt like the communication got a little off on this last storm. You'd think I would know, and I didn't even know when my garbage was going to, and you did get it taken care of, but thank you.
I apologize for any confusion on it,
No.
and some of it is misinformation that gets out on Facebook
I think so
or other
too.
social media. And there's also the confusion between what the county does versus what the city does. So for instance, on Tuesday, we were closed down. We were not doing any garbage collection, and that was because the landfill was closed. However, the facility that it receives our yard waste was open. So we decided, well, let's do a collection and get ahead of the storm. Which, in a perfect world, we would have had the ability to send out an alert to everybody to say, if you got anything, clean it up now and we'll try to get it. But storms are storms, unfortunately.
And I think one of the things to go with talking about recycling, we're still, Mr. Perry and I talked with the county. They're working through a temporary contract that they extended from their current haulers, and we're still working with Palmetto, Bradenton, Manatee County to talk about opportunities for future styles of recycling. Obviously, though, the residents got to realize that that is going to be a cost, and it can't bear, well, I recycle, I'll pay it. I don't recycle, I don't want to pay it. We can't do that. It's going to be a cost to every But the goal is still, always has been, if there's a way to get back to curbside, we want to.
And to that end, during the hurricane, I was at the EOC, and sitting next to me at the EOC was the utilities director for Manatee County, and we were talking about that very specific term, and he actually forwarded it to me for review, the contract language that they are working on for their contract that they're going to put on the street that will be the 2-year out, to make sure that we thought that it would cover us as far as wanting to be able to piggyback on that contract. So that continuation of that cooperation is ongoing.
It's just taken longer because the county contract got sidetracked, and
Correct.
they extended their current one just for a 2-year period.
Correct.
All right, thank you. So any further questions, or? Oh, yes, ma'am.
To that end, I wanted to talk about recycling a tiny bit because that is probably one of the things I hear the most about. I don't recall seeing anything in this, though, that actually addresses increased charges for recycling specifically or collection.
There is
There isn't.
none. There has
Okay.
never been a charge specific for recycling.
Okay,
in
I
our
wanted to
rates.
clarify that because it's in the title of the resolution,
Correct.
and I didn't want folks to think that we were charging
No.
because recycling is this thing that we're trying to address.
Essentially, from our standpoint, residential includes garbage, yard waste, and recycle cost. Even though we do have a separate division of recycle, it has been significantly reduced in size as we've redistributed people to the other departments.
Thank you. All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll just continue. Move to approve Resolution 2370.
Second.
Second by Ms. Coker. Any further discussion? Hear none, we'll start the vote in Ward 2. Ward 2,
Don't let us down. Yes.
3,
Yes?
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
and 1.
Yes.
Thank you. Approved 5-0. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan.
The next item is the first reading for ordinance 4016. An ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Part 1, Charter and Related Laws, Subpart B, Related Laws, Article 4, Police Officers Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bradenton, Florida. Amending Section 4, Finances and Fund Management, Establishment and Operation of Fund, amending Section 7, Pre-Retirement Death, amending Section 16, Minimum Distribution of Benefits, amending Section 27, Military Service Prior to Employment, amending Section 28, Prior Police Service, amending Section 30, Supplemental Benefit Component for Special Benefits, Chapter 185, Share Accounts, providing for severability of provisions, providing for codification, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And the second reading and public hearing for that ordinance will be on September 27th.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about that? Just moving it forward. All right, Madam Clerk?
Next, we have ordinance 4019. This is the first reading. An ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 1, to add a new Section 54-15, Storage of Personal Property, prohibiting the storage of personal property on public property, including public rights-of-way and private property without approval of owner, providing for removal and/or disposal of personal property in violation of Section 54-15, providing for exemptions to Section 5415, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4019 will also be on September 27th.
Okay. Any questions? Moving forward, Madam Clerk?
Next, we have the first reading of ordinance 4020, an ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 1, to add a new Section 54-7, Signs in the Public Rights-of-Way, prohibiting the placement of signs in the public rights-of-way, providing for exemptions, providing for removal and disposal of signs, providing for penalties, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible that we can add flags to this? Those tall flags? You know, the vape shops and everything that's,
Well, in the right-of-ways or just on their property?
Yeah, I think that probably
That's
should be
addressed.
handled as a separate issue, and I did talk with Mr. Reese about that, and we're kind of taking a look at trying to do something along those lines
okay.
to provide a little better direction.
Even if, because a lot of those are on their own property.
Yeah,
You know,
Okay.
This is more
this is
for
right away.
right-of-way property.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
And the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4020 will also be on September 27th.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have ordinance 4021, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Bradenton, Florida, amending Part 1, Charter and Related Laws. Subpart B, Related Laws. Article 3, Firefighters Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bradenton, Florida. Amending Section 1, Definitions. Amending Section 4, Finances and Fund Management. Amending Section 7, Pre-Retirement Death. Providing for codification. Providing for severability of provisions. Repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4021 will be on September 27th.
Okay, any questions? All right, moving forward.
Next, we have under city administration, new business, collective bargaining agreement between the City of Bradenton and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees.
Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Council, the collective bargaining agreement related to AFSCME is the third and final contract that was subject to economic considerations from last year. We were able to get with the union representatives and the collective bargaining exclusive representatives to put together a proposal that we thought really would help enhance our recruitment and retention efforts, particularly in blue-collar ranks. The vast majority of these employees do work within public works, many within enterprises, which we talked about recently, and the rate increases. And we have to be market rate competitive in order to recruit and retain employees. In order to do that, obviously wage rates are critically important to that. We are in a situation that was talked about previously regarding it's a different environment with workers, both skilled and semi-skilled and unskilled, than it seems to be prior to COVID. And so we had been trying to catch up. We made significant progress last year. We've made significant progress with our public safety, particularly in police, within the officers and sergeants contract, and fire as well. We're continuing to do that. We think that this increase, which represents approximately a 15% salary increase to hourly salaried employees, almost exclusively within the blue collar and perhaps first line supervision ranks, will help us immensely in trying to have employees that we can rely on, that are top quality, that we can retain, and ultimately enhance our services that are provided to the citizens. So that's where we're at, and we believe we can afford it. Some of the adjustments that had to be made were to rate and distributions to other personal services accounts which are contained in this year's budget.
Any questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve contract between the City of Bradenton and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees effective October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2025 with a 2023 reopener.
Second.
Second, I heard Ms. Barnaby. Okay, and just one comment I'd like to make is, I know over the years that I was on the council, is a lot of these contracts weren't actually ratified till after we started the year, our year. So I'm just, thanks to the administration and everyone that works through that process, that we've got everything now going into the year. And I guess sometimes you could go back and sometimes you couldn't, would make it retroactive, but now we don't have to because it's active on October 1. So appreciate all of the groups negotiating as well as the administration did a great job getting things done.
And I would point out, just Mayor, that this contract is through 2025. It's a 3-year agreement, basically. It started last year. This was the economic opener.
This was the opener,
Yeah,
right?
but it'll be basically continuous through to 2025, so we don't have to redo it every year, which is.
Nope.
Are there any reopeners?
No,
I don't believe so.
there's no.
No, I'm told there isn't. Yep. And it was reviewed by council, labor attorney, Mr. Herring, Gray Robinson.
So the motion would be then without the opener, because I think you had.
Well,
said
this
that.
was the 2023 reopener.
Yeah, this was the
it.
opener, right. With
Yeah.
this opener, we negotiated, and we extended it a year.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it'll be
no,
3
that's what I
years,
meant.
perfect. Okay, perfect. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Further, we'll start the vote in Ward 3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you,
Great
Mayor.
job on everything
Great
that's been
job
going
to
on with the administration.
our
So-
team, our finance and HR team on doing that, and legal team. I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about our prior hurricane and some of the activities of that storm, which Adelia was considerably different than Ian last year, for a variety of different reasons. But as you know, we make a declaration, and we make that declaration along with the state, the county's declaration, and we're controlled basically through the state plan, and ultimately they submit to the federal FEMA, and the county is responsible for primary emergency management function within Manatee County and of course the city of Bradenton. However, we have really stepped up our game in our public safety departments, in our public works departments, in our administrative functions and the like to more actively plan, prepare, respond, recover from these types of what are becoming all too common events, these types of hurricane storms here in Southwest Florida. But what I can tell you, and you know, I'm not from here, many of you are, is that no two storms are the same. And this was a perfect example of this. This particular storm did track the cone of uncertainty. It stayed offshore 212 miles. That submitted us to a certain exposure to a quadrant of the storm that led to storm surge, and that was our biggest problem. We don't have when we're at the Emergency Operations Center, we're dealing with operational issues, and I'm going to get my notes. We're dealing with operational issues that are really confined to the city, and with this storm, we're monitoring the track because, as you know, these things can veer off, and all of a sudden, it's a wind and water event. This was more of a water event opposed to last year, and we don't know what's going to happen. We do not have a line to whoever decides the weather pattern of a particular storm, but we have to be mindful that it could change and be prepared for everything. And so the first few days are really planning and preparing it. It's operational. We're coordinating, looking at are our contracts in place for provisioning, for emergency services, debris removal, different types of utility protections, and a whole host of other things. And of course, the FIT response, which is the first in teams, which are primarily located down in that area where our PSAC is on 59th Street. We only had one FIT team in there this year, but had two the previous year. And so we're kind of getting ready, but it's a very uncertain time. And the way we do that is we get on routine calls with the county that has received updated weather reports, but really they're the same weather reports that you get at home. by watching the Weather Channel or the local news. They're regularly scheduled trips that the National Weather Service does and the National Oceanic Association with the hurricane hunters that go in there and really get the weather telemetry of a storm. And as soon as it's out, it's in real time. The 11 o'clock report comes out and everything. So we get summaries of that, and we try to coordinate all of the preparation through these incident calls, level 1 activation incident calls. And in this particular case, I think we were doing them twice a day. We did them early in the morning, and we did them at 8 p.m., as I remember. Most of the information is all, again, the early stages, planning, preparation, is everything and everybody in place. The storm comes along, and luckily in this case, it stays offshore, heads up north, and all of a sudden we know we're going to get a storm surge. We had prepared to identify those areas in the city that were low-lying storm surge areas and had pre-positioned assets and personnel and plans in place, because we didn't know at that point whether it was going to be 2 feet or 7 feet of storm surge. And it makes a big difference, and particularly with the tidal conditions that are at play. And so as we found out when the storm came in, everything that had the word river in front of it, Riverview, Riverside, and Riverwalk, was underwater. And anything around Bradenton River, which is where Everest Reservoir basically feeds from, is at danger as well. So we try to deal with those things, and we don't know what the tide's going to do, because we had our teams out, including myself, surveying conditions that morning of the storm, and it was clear that the tide was coming in. The high tide was going to hit at 11:30 approximately a.m., and the storm surge was coming in about the same time. So we saw areas on those river areas that were considerably underwater, and we didn't know how long they were going to be underwater. Luckily, at about 1:30, things started to subside, about 1330 hours, and those tides went out faster than I've seen them go out in a long time, and the water levels dropped. The point of all this is that it's fairly dynamic, and it's really the information we don't get. There's not a whole lot to pass on to you guys. It's the general information. I know that there was evacuation orders for those areas and the like, and a lot of people didn't evacuate, and a lot of people were kind of underwater. Their front yard was underwater. The street out in front of their house was underwater, and they did whatever they could do to protect their premise from it. And so we do assessment and the like, but there's not a whole lot. We got lucky, we dodged a bullet. It was considerably different from me, and so I apologize if I didn't get enough information out, but it was just general information that I think you could probably get just by watching the news in about the same time as I got it, frankly. And we continue to do better with that. Web EOC, which is a platform where we report situational awareness, and we have incident action plans. This is an example of one, and we conduct these briefings throughout, constantly working really around the clock and trying to get some shut-eye when the storm hits so that we're ready to go in the morning, depending on how bad it is. That's what happens in the EOC. We're a lot better at it. I think most of our public safety chiefs would agree with that. I think that Jim and his public works crew do a great job. We're getting things down a lot better in accordance with National Incident Management Systems, which is known as NIMS, and the FEMA requirements, and the reporting and recovery of funds. So my hat's off to the city team. They did a good job. Every time they do a better job, it seems like. But it's so dependent on the nature of the storm.
Well, I think, Mr. Perry, when you and I were driving around and, the evacuation A, everybody should have evacuated, but the one gentleman that's car was floating.
Right.
Because he opened his garage, his car wasn't wet. He opened his garage door trying to get it out, and it was floating off of Riverview Boulevard and the street. And finally, it sunk enough where he caught some traction on the road. But that could have been a very dangerous situation with that gentleman in his car. So
absolutely,
you got to remember, if you're in an evacuation zone, you've got to leave. And that was my message the whole time, because we knew the tidal surge was going to be something we didn't understand or know about. And thank goodness that 2 or 3 hours at that point when you and I were driving around, we saw the water receding when we expected it to still be climbing.
Absolutely.
By what the media was saying. So, you know, and the way the tide was coming in for 12:30-ish, but at 11:30 it started receding, thank goodness. And I think that not only saved the residents, it also helped us at our water plant. But no, great job by the staff and everybody working, and a lot of non-sleep.
Yeah, and we did a really good job of trying to identify those vulnerable targets through a storm: mobile homes, establishing shelters, homelessness issues, construction sites, city facilities themselves, derelict vessels, utility, water treatment, a lot of things you got to kind of get on, and it's all dependent on what the storm does to a certain extent. I think our folks rise to the occasion across the board. We did a good job. Yeah.
Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I had expressed frustration at not having information throughout the storm. But to be clear, that frustration was not a reflection of the performance. I 100% hats off appreciation. I think, and to be clear, I understand that it is not our role to be involved in the operations and that you are very extremely busy in a storm situation. I think, though, that from a policy leadership standpoint, you feel a sense of helplessness, and you want to be able to answer people's questions and be responsive. And I was trying to be respectful of administration's requests that we not discuss anything or reach out to individual staff members. So to that point, I might just suggest that in future incidents, you permit Ms. Roberts to, when she's going to push information out to the public, also communicate that to us so that we could even, even if we just, that lets me know there's new information on Facebook. I'm going to go look. So we can answer basic questions. My neighborhood also, just about everyone put their trash can out afterwards. I also didn't know that. So I think it's not that for me personally, so I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire council, but it's not that I expect to be given, hourly updates or anything. It's just this sense of just let us know when information is being pushed so that we can also, to the extent that neighbors are reaching out or have an expectation that we know something, we can just be responsive in that regard and not feel as helpless as I think I personally did during the incident.
One of the most important things that I think we've got to set an example of here is if you're in an evacuation zone, you got to evacuate.
Sure, of course.
That's important because if we don't evacuate, what does the public think? Oh, well, the council members and the mayor didn't evacuate, there's trouble. But one of the things that, Jeannie was pushing that out a lot on Facebook about the garbage and all of that. Code Red was doing things. We got
Was Code Red used?
Yes.
Yeah.
I never got anything.
Yeah,
From all devices.
Yeah, everything that would go off, and it was going off all the time. And one of the things I think that we learned from Ian is too much Code Red is too much.
Absolutely.
So we tried to be really perspective of when it was that important because, as we know, if you say, get out, get out, get out, and then again, I think the hardest part for all of us is if you've lived here a long time, you've been through a lot of them. And probably 9 out of 10 times it doesn't happen what it was. But this one, if you lived in the Zone A and Riverview, Riverside, all of it, you were in trouble if it would have kept rising. We were lucky that it rose so far because several people on those streets when we got to the streets and couldn't get any farther told us it's the highest they've ever seen it.
Well, Jean, I think, was that high.
Huh?
Hurricane Jean.
Yeah, but
way
I'm saying
back.
the people that have lived on houses, there's actually 5 houses up from Riverview Boulevard. They're not in evacuation A. It's funny how, they're in B and they said, we stayed and they've never seen the water, didn't get past their house, but it was in the middle of their front yard on the street. So, that was something, and they've lived there for a long time. But anyway, I just think it's to continue to work. We know what's going to happen, with the PSOC, working through that and making it more efficient. That'll make it easier to get more information, push it out.
For sure.
But,
It's a great suggestion.
There's
We'll try to do a
ways
better
to do
job
it. But the funny thing is we knew some of that information from the TV before we knew it from the EOC. because they had to get it 7 o'clock, and then 8 o'clock, we had the meeting.
Right.
But we already knew it from 7 o'clock by watching the Weather Channel, you know, but again, it's more localized that way. So, but no, the staff and everyone did a great job, and it wasn't as bad of a storm, and I appreciate, obviously, the sandbags, all of that was well, and we tried to do a better job at communicating that as well, too, this time. And so, great job by everybody. Appreciate it, Mr. Perry.
Of course.
Anything else?
Great team effort. I just want to talk a little bit about project updates. And so we conducted inspection with core samples over at the Herald Building. And we should have a report back from structural engineering probably the end of this week is what I'm expecting. I had heard that thus far it was pretty good, the visual inspections of the structural systems, but of course it's all subject to laboratory analysis and ultimately, you know, technical structural engineering. But we're moving along with that fairly timely. ACOM on the police department, and kudos to PD. Chief Bevan and her team have been doing a great job moving that project along. We're at concept design development, DD, what it's called right now, and I believe the timeline on that looks like we will probably have all of the schematic, meaning where the building sits on the site and what's inside the building, and we'll go through that up to Thanksgiving. I want to say it's November 27th, thereabouts the deadline. At that point, we'll have to give the architects a notice to proceed with construction drawings. We agree on where it should be, and we're doing a whole host of things, and Jim's team's doing a great job too. But we're working with ACOM, and once those construction drawings get done, which would be probably in March, they can start doing permitting and ultimately site work. So you're looking at probably the middle of next year turning dirt. And that would be a construction fence around there with a screen that shows the rendering and the like. And we're trying to look at about a 15 to 18-month building window thereafter. So it's proceeding in accordance with the timeline, on time, on budget. 30 million, 30 months from when we started. And that's what that project's kind of coming down to. The discussions for the master development agreement are going quite well on this facility. Mr. Zorbel was supposed to come in and meet with council last week, but because of the storm, he couldn't, obviously. And he will have get some feedback on architectural standards. We're looking at doing a preliminary development agreement probably by, I believe, we're looking at the end of October, and a master development agreement to come to you all probably by the end of the year, by the end of the year. And that sets out a lot of obligations of both the developer and the city to they need to know before they engage architects and start with design development for both site and structure. They need to know they have certain entitlements, and those entitlements are things like height, and they need to make obligations regarding parking and the hotel rooms, the numbers of units and the layout and different types of commercial space. So I think you'll like the MDA where it's going. Corey and I and our team through Gilchrist Neighbors and Mark Muskin, the attorneys out of Tallahassee that are on that development team, they've done a good job. We've been having meetings basically once a week and going back and forth with Mr. Zorbel, L&L Development, and I think we're really at a point where we have minimal issues regarding that proposal. That leads to a second point that I wanted to make, or second subject, which is Ms. Singer brought in a proposal, and I think we had a workshop actually on, or it might have been during a council meeting on incentives, entitlements to incentivize basically downtown urban core surrounding area development. And she basically is taking that plan that she's put together and restructured the boundaries from some of the feedback we've got from council, just minor tweaks with that, and is going to send it to planning council. That's the process it has to go through. Ultimately, after that, it will come to you all, and it's a panoply of what you want to do as it relates to the boundaries themselves, as well as how you calculate the height restrictions particularly within a 5 or 6, a T5, T6, and form code based code. More complicated, though, is some of the changes that the state has made. And I don't know how much attention you all been paid to that. It's easy to kind of miss some details, but generally speaking, if you do 40% affordable housing, because there's an incentive for affordable housing, if you're within a mile of a certain zone, you can get that zone's zoning requirements. 40% is a lot. As a practical matter, people aren't going to build something probably outside this T5, T6 urban core window that we're looking at and be 3/4 of a mile away and go, well, I'm going to build something and do 40% affordable housing, because the math won't work. But it is something to be mindful of. That will all come back to you. I'm suspecting, I believe, in October. Yep. And Greg and Robin and her team have been working very hard on that. And it's really important. It's important to the overall development of the city, particularly the downtown corridor, particularly as it relates to this project and the entitlements associated with it. Because
Mr. Perry, I just want to make one comment on that.
Of course.
Obviously, seeing some things around surrounding areas with what's happening and doing different things. And when you are comparing one to the other, one to us,
yep,
you've got to look at what we've done, because a lot of the things the city has done has been on the front end of the affordable housing. Other cities are now doing it where they didn't do it up front.
That's right.
And so when you look at image and the knowledge of things, you know, I believe a lot of it's going to be important to manage through, but there's affordable, workforce, attainable.
Senior.
So
Yeah,
senior,
working.
right? So you're really going to have to evaluate what we're doing and look at what we've done, what others haven't done yet, but now may be trying to catch up. So I think that's going to be important for this council to really manage through. Ms. Coker?
And with regard to that that statute, it would still, just because it's within a mile, it would still have to be zoned for that multifamily, right? Just because it's within a, completely?
I'll let Ms. Sid
Like,
address that.
if somebody wants to go in the river district and put
It-
in a high-rise?
So what it allows is if it allows you to go to the height that's allowed within a mile, if you're on commercial property, mixed-use property, so any of the property along State Road 64 that has commercial zoning would be eligible for a potential affordable housing project. And they would be eligible to go up to the maximum height that's allowed for any project within a mile that's in the jurisdiction. The question becomes, you know, we have height bonuses and things like that, so it's not exactly clear what they would be, what they would have permitted by right. But yes, to some extent, they would be able to do that type of project.
So you have your urban fringe that goes all the way, I think, to 26th Street, is urban something, what's that designation?
Urban Village.
Urban Village, that's it.
Yeah.
And then behind it's all single-family homes. You're saying those, if somebody had enough land there, they could go do an affordable housing high-rise?
If
Not
it
in the
is-
single family.
Right.
Not in the single-family, but they
No.
could do it up in the urban.
Commercial, industrial, and mixed use, they can do that. And it's the height within 1 mile, but the density overall in the city, but it's still subject to whatever provisions we have. So, for example, you can go up to 200 units per acre in the downtown or the urban core area. However, there's stipulations on that. It has to go through council approval. So it's not as simply a matter of you get it.
Okay.
But,
Well, that is not entirely settled, let's put it that way. Because what the law says is it has to be an administrative approval, so we can't make them go to council. It has to be approved administratively. So we're gonna have to figure our way through that, and the council may not see it, but we may have to figure it out at staff level.
But financial-wise, there's going to be a lot that would have to make sense, and I don't know that they're going to, it's not going
That's
to be
right.
easy.
I don't like leaving it to that, though. Okay.
That's right.
That'll be coming before us, though.
Appreciate it.
Right, of course. And then, lastly, I just wanted to see if I get Elmo going here. We're coming up, and let me try as you know, Dr. St. Luce had separated from the city, and we're looking at some minor adjustments that are in our org chart here. So every year I like to do an org chart revisit and sign the bottom org chart for, approved, blah, 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 kind of thing. What we're proposing here basically is to move Lance Williams, who's done a great job, into the Chief Operating Officer position. And he is a multi-talented individual that does a very good job of working with the various departments and divisions within them, understanding the finances, the personnel, the operations, the HR, and all the aspects of it. I think he'll do a really good job. He's been doing a lot of that for us anyway. And we'll also be looking at putting a digital media marketing, events, and public information specialist to help Ms. Roberts a little bit with the communications front. I think that we have a lot more going on downtown that's going to have to be kind of managed a little bit. It's going to have to, the communications is going to have to be a little broader than it's been, the marketing efforts, the coordination, and the like. So we're kind of proposing these changes that are included on this org chart.
Any questions? I mean, Mr. Perry will get with everyone and talk a little bit more.
Right. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right.
I think that's it.
Any other unfinished business?
Lots of it, but that's enough for today.
Yeah. All right. Council reports. It's
Me
5.
again?
Well, we skipped you first last time. It was 5. We might have jumped. You want to go last again?
Now I'll go. Oh, boy. This seems like every meeting. Just want to kind of reiterate some things that we've discussed today. Boy, it was a lot and really good stuff. Just to kind of add to commending the EOC team, everybody. My aunt's gonna roll in her grave. It ain't easy. It's just really not easy to do it all and do it all perfectly and make everybody happy. One of the things I like about being in government at this level is that you're so close to your constituents. You know, the public is right there. You can kind of put your thumb on their pulse. I don't think I would want to be in a government organization that's any higher than this, because then the higher you go, the further you're away from your people, you know. And it's hard to get people to understand why you know, the reason to your madness, and it's just so hard to get that education out there, that they can fully understand why you don't pick up recycle at the curb side, why you have to raise the rates and the fees. You know, it's just really hard to get them to see that, and it's difficult for us to make policy that's increasing things and hurting it, appearing to hurt the public, but not really intentionally. One of the other things that happened today was a man, Mr. Evan Jones. He's no longer sitting in the audience, but this is a prime example of how government just works so slowly. This gentleman is living in a home that's, and I can't say that I really looked very closely to the pictures or even driven by, but from just the sounds of it, you know, it's not in the best condition. And right before the storm was about to come upon us, I didn't get to answer the call, but he left a message, and the message was so disheartening because he was saying he's in a structure that can't withstand this storm, and he said, and he's got to take his mom, and they have to go somewhere safe. And he wasn't really complaining, but it was almost like he was saying, you know, it's your fault. It's your fault that this hasn't been done. So it was really tough to see him come up in person, but we are trying to do everything we can. This council, this staff, the departments, the skilled, unskilled, everybody that's part of making this operate well are trying so hard. And I just hope the public will just kind of open their ears and hearts sometimes and understand what we're trying to do. When Chief Counsel Gallo came up and talked about the burdens of the insurance costs and so forth, he also mentioned something about mental health. And that is definitely something that we have to make sure our first responders and everyone, because of life stressors, that they have that support. When he mentioned the fire where the gentleman had killed his entire family, including the baby in the crib, it was around the corner for me. I was small. I can't remember how old I was. But I would have to walk past that house when I would go to school. So I saw that burnt out house. And then once I was told the story, because my parents, they didn't I'm sure they sheltered me from understanding he shot them all. But all I knew was the head of the household, the father in that house, killed his entire family. I kept hugging my dad for I don't know how many nights saying, Daddy, please don't kill me, don't kill me, don't kill us, don't kill us. So those kind of things do stick with you. I can only imagine how it felt to pick that baby up, you know. So, I don't know, that, but I don't. On a positive note, school is going well. I think this is the best beginning of the school year I've ever had. In the last 10 years I've been working for Manatee County School District, and it's just going really well. And last thing, thank you all that I had a beautiful card here for my birthday and well wishes, and I just want to thank everyone. And Mayor, I want to thank you for the card. This Friday, I'll be catching up with Councilwoman Barnaby.
That's three.
That's three. It's okay.
But I'm in it with you.
Yes.
I'm on the boat.
And we make this look good.
We do. Absolutely. 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 Ward 5's alive.
Thank you, Ms. Coachman. Ward 1.
Not much. I just wanted to also thank everyone, staff, all of you that worked so hard to keep us all safe through the storm. We do appreciate it. I know you're unsung heroes, but I did want to express my appreciation as well. It's going to be a long season, I'm afraid. So, and also wanted to thank the other night, our fearless mayor was out helping one of the people in my ward picking up some of his trash boxes off the roadside. I mean, he's always there for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I can't do that kind of stuff. I don't have a truck. But anyhow, that's all I wanted to say thank you to the mayor for helping someone on my road and in my ward. Thank you.
Ward 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too feel like our community was very blessed. While we had some localized flooding, we're not dealing with what the people in Steinhatchee and Cedar Key and Perry, Florida are dealing with even now. So we again, we're very blessed to be protected the way that we were. And I'm in an evacuation zone A, and we evacuated. Luckily, this time I did not lose power, so I could watch the river come up the street and up into my yard and driveway, but it didn't get, it got the highest I'd seen it since I'd lived there, but it didn't flood anything on my property. And I know that some of my neighbors were not as lucky, and I want to thank Mr. McClellan because we met with a couple yesterday that, they can't live in their house right now. They've had to have everything drywall, millwork, the baseboards, everything removed because of the flooding that happened. And I want to thank Mr. McClellan for meeting with us yesterday and doing all of that he does to help our citizens when we have these kinds of situations. Again, I think that we were very blessed. And while I'm looking at Jim, he hasn't said much, but he had a birthday this week too. So he and Miss Coachman, again, I wish them both a very happy birthday, and I hope that we have many, many more with them. I would like to extend my sympathy to the family of Bill Maisel on the passing of his wife, Lynn. Bill and I went to elementary school together, and that's how long I've known him, and I was kind of instrumental in the two of them getting together. I will say I have a 1,000% matchmaker record. Pardon me, no, it's nothing, it's nothing like that. It's just, there's been two couples that I helped put together, and they were happily married, and one of them is still very happily married. And again, Bill just lost his wife, Lynn. And I do want to say that I am a great aunt, and I'm a great aunt again. And I want to give congratulations to my niece Karis and her husband Lee. They're the Mauers on the birth of their baby girl on Monday, Evelyn Blair Mauer. And Evelyn, Annie M, can't wait to meet you.
While we're under Ward 2, can we get an update on timing on Riverview Boulevard with the street there? And I got a couple calls on it last week after we had the meeting. And then also a couple of emails about Lewis Park with having the young kids playground, not just the handicapped. So those two.
From a Riverview Boulevard standpoint, Woodruff is scheduled to mobilize on Monday. So different kinds of phone calls will follow after this. Right. So, and Lewis Park, I know we've given the go-ahead to the contractor to pour the curbing and do the layout for the final swing set section. I unfortunately don't have an update for you right now to tell you what that is, but they have been approved to go forward with that.
Good. No, I told them, I thought Riverview would be within the next couple of weeks, I told them. So if it's Monday, they see something, they'll be happy. And then Lewis Park, just some 13 and 14-year-old kids that say, hey, I can't swing next to my friend, so I told them we were working on that. So,
yes.
Appreciate it. All right, Ward 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for delaying me having to go immediately following Mrs. Barnaby getting choked up. I, too, echo, and I echoed it in the council corner. Thank you, Jeannie, for that, getting that out last week for all our employees and everything they do. I was sheltered with a lot of the officers who, thankfully and surprisingly, this year didn't get called in off the road because the winds never got bad enough. So I was thankful for that. For anybody watching who's not in the audience today, all those city staffers who come up here and speak at the podium, they're the ones that I'm going to probably pass your complaint, questions, whatever off to, because they are the experts. We are up here to guide policy, but they are the ones who do the work and get everything done for the city. So I deeply appreciate Jim, and Brian's not here, and Chief and Assistant Chief taking my calls and all of our calls for what we have to pass on to them. We're not trying to complain. We don't have that information, and you all do. So thank you again. And hot off the presses, just delivered to me, I want to let you all know about the Midnight at the Masquerade at the Bradenton Women's Club on Saturday, October 14th. It is a masquerade murder mystery dinner. So sounds very exciting. Buy tickets now at BradentonWomen'sClub.com.
Is it to benefit them?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to introduce it to us?
Sure. Sitting midway through the left side.
Come on up,
is,
Jeff. Just get you on TV. In case they don't watch the CRA meeting, they watch this one. We'll introduce you.
Dr. Jeff Burton is the new CRA Executive Director. He comes to us immediately from the city of Tampa, where he had a brief career there after being in Palmetto for many years, but is beyond knowledgeable in all things CRA, and it is a huge get for us to have him.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be back. It's been a long time.
Great to see you, and glad you're here. And I know you got to work one day and then had 2 days off from a hurricane. So.
That was nice, by the way.
It's our one-day work week, so. No, but welcome, and we appreciate, working with you through the city and obviously the CRA and everything we do.
I'm glad to be here and trying to be as focused as possible, learning as quick as I can. You have a great staff in the CRA, so really happy about that. Trying to focus on each specific step forward. I've told some of the board individually as we've talked. This month, if I can get to the end of the month with 3 brand new CRA plans for the 3 areas that we can move forward with, already working with Development Services on getting them to the Planning Commission for their review and then back to the City Council in November, so we can get them to the county for their review. Have those up and running is, if we have to take the maximum time, it'll be early February, but that's the foundation by which we work from. Grants will be coming after that, incentives after that, and then we'll work on a multi-year budget for you to project out the CRA. So that's on the CRA side. On the economic development side, I already have Chris collecting the data to create the Bradenton engine that will help us give you cost-benefit analysis for each project that comes in. And so we're slowly building this framework. Of course, all of that has to run through the attorney's office, so we'll be working close with Scott. We've worked together in the past. We've done pretty well together in the past. And to get these new documents to you, everything will be based on policy, which the CRA board will be approving as we go along. So the policies are how we move, how we function, and it will clean up, I think, any ambiguity, any gray areas. So looking forward to getting all of this to you, and just excited to be here. So thank you.
Welcome. I think Mr. Perry had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend council for getting someone of Mr. Burton's experience, stature, and expertise. I'd had numerous conversations with Jeff, and just incredibly impressed with his knowledge and expertise in this area. And when I look at everything we're trying to do in the city, in the downtown area, in some of the underserved areas and the like, I just don't think we could have gotten to anybody with that type of mental and professional horsepower. And I really look forward I look forward for benefit myself, our staff, and you all as you wear your CRA hat and then put on your city council hat, to see the melding of the two, because there has been a disconnect at times for different reasons, and we're such a small and kind of more, I guess it's a type of homogeneous city, because it's smaller, and a lot of the issues that we have, if it affects one side, it affects the other side and the like. And I think we're really going to be able to make some huge strides with Jeff, his expertise, his passion, his relationships with other people, his professionalism to work with our staff, to work with you all, to work with the external partners that we have to work with. And I'm just really looking forward to it. I think it would really increase our bandwidth here at the city of Bradenton.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Ward 4.
Thank you. I will piggyback off of Councilman Kramer's remarks regarding the CRA and commend Dr. Burton. I was able to attend this is CRA mainly related, and I will report on it at our CRA meeting, but I was an attendee at last night's advisory committee, board for the CCRA. And what I have been impressed with Dr. Burton to date is his ability to rally staff and also the public. And I saw it in both of those environments. So I think that that's really encouraging. And I similarly look forward to continuing to get some things done. Regarding the storm, while we dodged a bullet, I live in a low-lying area. There are many people that suffered, that there was water in their home. Excuse me. It must be the day. And so I just want to make clear that that is why it is very important to me that we support Public Works financially and staff in any manner that we can, because there were people that suffered, and they have been. So the work of their department is extremely important, and it's my priority, and I think that there's no secret about that. Regarding sustainability, I will let you all know that the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council is having their annual conference in May. And I will ask Ms. Melton to disseminate information about attendance and sponsorships for both council and staff, if anyone is interested. Last year's was really well done, and I thought it was informative and worthwhile. The County Homelessness Task Force is currently focusing on developing permanent housing, or permanent supportive housing solutions. Currently, the county has 0. And so that's what the focus is currently, and I'll report more about that at our next council meeting, because we are having another subgroup meeting on that issue tomorrow. And just so in case anyone doesn't not know, public or permanent supportive housing means it's affordable housing that is also provides services to the residents. So it's the gap between transitional housing and then just permanent housing solutions. And that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. All right, first off, since we're close over there, but Art Center Manatee is having their groundbreaking tomorrow at 8:30, which has been a long-term time coming, and I think they've worked out all of their situations, so it's going to be good to see. You know, Mr. Perry, since he's got here, has talked about the Bishop, the Art Center, and the Player, Manatee Performing Arts, about how important that is to have those. There was at one point, Art Center was trying to get kind of forced by one individual to move to Lakewood Ranch. But we were able to keep them here, and we think that's one of our staples, is having those 3 there, not only with our award-winning Riverwalk, everything else that we're doing downtown. So we're glad to finally see that as that next step, and obviously break ground and start the building process. So going to be proud to be at that tomorrow. Want to kind of celebrate September 12th is National Police Women's Day. It's celebrated each year on September 12th. We love all of our police officers. I see 2 of them in the back of the room that are not female, but we celebrate all of them. But one of the things that approximately 21% of our sworn officers that do a wide variety of things are women. And it's important that we continue to lead that leadership and growing. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's a big increase from
yeah,
just
that's what I was
5
saying.
years, 5 years ago.
5 years ago, so that's
Huge,
what I'm
double.
proud of to be a part of. And as we know, we've got some younger ones in there, and we've just recently, we ratified today the ASHME contract, but we ratified last meeting our union contract for the police that was 79-7. And I think we all have a lot to be proud up here on that, because the year before it was like 49-36. So through our administration and everything we've done is given something great there. So kudos to that. We want to, with some scheduling conflicts in October and November. October is a CRA meeting that's on the date, I guess a conference that there. So we're going to look at that. And then also in November, legislative this year is in January, February. So one of our meetings with the legislative committee, people that work through the chamber, is in November. So we'll get with Ms. Singer and her group, probably the most important, to look at dates So the last meeting in October and the only meeting in November, we may either look at combining or doing something, and if we have to call a special meeting around some of that, we will. But I think the planning department is probably the most important to make sure all of those. So we'll get with them and work on that, because I am a true believer in two things: is collaboration, education from the standpoint of learning what we can learn to make our city better, and we see legislatively being involved what that's changed over the last couple of years. And to spend a little bit of money, and $75,000 a year is not a little bit, but it's a little bit compared to the return of the tens of millions of dollars that we've already got from that return. So I think those two are important to adjust. So we're working on that. On my list, I think that is most everything. I do want to, and we sent out to the council yesterday, and I hope you all read it, is we had gone through an extensive meeting process to talk about City Hall and options and out there. And it basically was talked about my whole tenure here from 2013. 2013 would not have been the time to do that because this building was still in some working order. The building now and the timing of our economy and the way everything is going is very important. It was very important to me, as being your mayor, that we did things above and beyond, and we had a complaint that we did not. The state's attorney has investigated it, 8-page report, so if anybody wants that 8-page report, it's out there. And not only did we not violate sunshine, it even says in the report we went above and beyond anything we had to do. And that was important through myself, I know this council, the administration, to actually do things that were above and beyond. So we knew in our hearts how that report would come out, but now we have the documentation to show that we're trying to do things. Again, sometimes we're going to differ politically on something, one way or the other, but there is no malice in trying to hide anything. So I'm very proud that this report is out there, and that, you know, if a citizen has concerns, we want to listen, but it has been answered. So thank you to everyone that has been through that, and we appreciate the positiveness that will still continue, and we will always work to be positive for all the citizens. And again, sometimes we're going to have little differences, but we can work through them for the good of the whole. So thank you for that, and I think that's all I've got for now. And department heads, anyone have anything specific? I think we've covered a lot and went a little longer on some of it, and I appreciate the indulgence through the insurance committee part of things, because that is important to us. And, you know, it's tough when you make changes, but I think that hour there was worth the effort to have information got out. So seeing none, we'll be adjourned.